and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at getethos.com. That's getethos.com.
What's going on? Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. NFLPA report cards are out, and the Titans were one of 5 teams to not receive an A in any category. But B's and C's get degrees. The Titans ranked 18th out of 32 teams and received their highest grades in ownership, strength coach, weight room, and head coach, while their lowest grade came in on team travel, where they received an F. Chiefs were busy yesterday, giving L'Jarius Sneed an opportunity to find his own trade, while also releasing Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Over 2 years with the Chiefs, MVS caught 63 passes for 1,002 yards and 3 touchdowns. The release saves Kansas City around $12.5 million. And Michael Pittman hopefuls can go ahead and stop holding their breath, as the Colts general manager gave an update yesterday saying Pittman will remain on the team in 2024, whether through franchise tag or extension. The tag remains an option if the team can't get a deal done by March 5th. And the Vols take down Auburn 92-84. Dalton Knecht was a superstar, scoring 39 points in 33 minutes to take down the 11th team in the nation. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Thursday morning and over the hump of the week. It's frigid in Nashville, but we don't care. We're ready. We're happy to be talking with you. Braving the elements for 4 hours this morning in beautiful Music City, where I'm in an empty studio. Interesting. Robert Walsh is our producer behind the glass. Ramon Foster's all the way in Indianapolis. Kayla Anderson with the morning off, and I've got no friends here to sit with me in the studio. Ramon, what's up? How are you?
Not much, Will, man. You got plenty of friends there, man. It's you and all the people you know inside of a room, right?
It's all my imaginary friends I used to have when I was a kid.
That's what I was gonna say. Were you one of those kids? Not that there's anything wrong with that, because
I was.
I had a few teammates. One in particular, Marcus Gilbert, had an imaginary friend, and he told us his name was Shanko. I don't know where Shanko comes from, but that's one of the first time I've heard that happen like that, Will. But
yes.
It's normal stuff.
It will shock you to learn, with my just terrible imagination and lack of creativity in my life, that I had a couple of imaginary friends, yes.
Okay, for sure. Well, I clearly had one last night, too, in the room next to me at the hotel we're staying in.
Oh.
It just pleasant day, okay? Pleasant night. Every night's been quiet, no extra noise, no anything, dog. But last night was one of those nights. I don't know if that person next to my room wasn't in their room and they have like a toothbrush malfunction or something, okay? It's about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I just hear this buzzing on the counter, and I'm like, what in the world? And I hear, you hear something, you're like, okay, that'll go away real soon. It didn't go away. It stayed on for about 5 minutes at a time. I'm like, God, what in the world is this? I finally got up and went to the restaurant. It's like, it's not my toothbrush. And lo and behold, it turns off. And about, it was probably 5:15 a.m. Eastern time, okay? And it goes off again. Will, Bert, by far one of the worst sounds I've ever heard in my life while I'm trying to catch some Z's, man. By far the worst.
I'm sure Kirby Allen Kirby has already told you about the ghost that he met in New Orleans at the Super Bowl, so perhaps this was that.
Man, you know what? If they only come out every 4 years because it's February 29th, then I guess that's what it is also.
Good point.
I did hear about Kirby's ghost in New Orleans, and I'm not trying to experience that life because I would be terrified, okay? I heard that story, and I think I got a little bit of – I might have had a nightmare because of that, him telling me his story.
Fair enough.
Yeah, man.
I feel like you are the type of person that – you're generally a tough person. I mean – I think you kind of have to be in order to play 11 years in the National Football League. You do strike me, though, as someone who, when encountering the supernatural, would just not have a good time and not be interested in continuing a conversation with some kind of ghost, the way I believe Kirby Allen Kirby would just have, just a full-on chat.
Yeah, and I believe that, too. And Will, you're 100% correct. There's a lot of things I can stomach, handle, walk right through, and deal with, right? The supernatural, not a fan of that. That's why we had in our previous show the conversation up in Adams, Tennessee, the Bell Witch conversation. Not a fan of bringing that type of stuff up. Not a fan of going to see a cave that a witch may live in. The stories that people told about them taking rocks from the Bell Witch cave and then their car exploding or wrecking. I'm not one. I don't want to live that. And Kirby's looking at me right now and saying that is baloney. Okay. that's exactly. He said that's baloney. I don't play with that at all.
Sounds like Kirby. Absolutely.
That does. Which is why he was okay with a ghost in his room. Okay.
Fair enough.
That's just me. Yeah, he said this is true, so it's confirmed again.
How was the night in Indy?
The night in Indy was fine, man. I ended up going to a cigar bar with one of my mentors, man. Stayed there for a little while. Ended up talking to a former Titan at the time, too, Chris Spencer. He was we sat and talked for a while. I was supposed to have another meeting with somebody. I went back to my room, Will, watched that game, and made it a night after that, man. Had some dinner, and that was it. I didn't do anything crazy. This first time around, I am really just getting my feet wet with the ongoings of the Combine. I heard a lot of people were at the JW. There were some other restaurants around the city that are some hot spots that all these scouts and media folks go to shake hands and make connections. I was just like, you know what? Got to get up, got to drive back to Nashville, so let me watch this game. And I'll be honest with you, that was probably the best decision. Saw one of the best performances of a college basketball player since the likes of Ron Slay, Chris Lofton, Grant Williams. Like, I got an opportunity to witness that. And I'm glad I did. That was awesome. If we could have driven to Knoxville last night, okay, to be in that crowd, I would have.
What is the best individual performance you've ever seen in person? That is our question of the day on Twitter, at Ramon Kayla Will, where you can send in your thoughts. I think this is one of the best individual performances by a Tennessee player in the last 10 years of Tennessee athletics. Obviously, Jalen Hyatt's performance against Alabama is going to get a lot of votes on that. That's probably my vote, to be honest with you. And Hendon Hooker had some outstanding days, but this was as good of a performance as you can see a college athlete have. 39 points for Dalton Knecht, who finished in the last 11 minutes of the game, 9 for 11 from the floor. It was unbelievable what he was doing, and we've seen him do it so many times, right? I feel like, Ramon, that's the sign of a very good player, is a guy just shows up and does things you've seen him do time and time again, yet you still find yourself saying, this guy's unbelievable. How is he doing this?
You know what, Will? But it's one of those situations when we talk about players, like, so I tell kids, and especially tell mine, right, who are young athletes, and we can take this conversation far, okay? By the way, shout out to you with the drink this morning. I see you, Will. Okay, getting a little hydration.
Well, a little lemon lime. I don't know.
A little lemon lime. But I tell people all the time, like, to be good at something, like, they're going to talk about you, right? You know what I'm saying, Will? Like, they're going to talk about you. They're going to speculate about you. Some won't believe what they hear about you or what you're supposed to do. And I always tell people, be exactly who they think you are. You know, like that's what I tell athletes that want to be good or consider themselves those types of players. Hey, and I tell my kids going out when they compete, hey, be who they say you are. You know what I'm saying? And Dalton Connect was who everybody thought he was, a primetime game, a night game against a top 25 team at home, and he was exactly who we thought he was. There is no better satisfaction than to have a player be that type of guy on a stage like that. Well, and that's not just him. That's people that want to be great. Be who they say you are, and it was phenomenal, man. It really was.
Dalton Connect nearly single-handedly erasing an 8-point deficit in the second half, scoring 27 of his 39 points after halftime to lead Tennessee to a 92-84 win over Bruce Pearl, who after the game said, not only do I want Tennessee to win the SEC championship because I'm the coach at Auburn and they play Alabama this weekend, which I thought was great, but also said that Dalton Connect has his vote for SEC Player of the Year. We talk a lot about moments in an MVP season, in a Heisman season. On a smaller scale, this was Dalton Connect's SEC Player of the Year moment. If he doesn't win SEC Player of the Year after this, then disband the award.
Yeah. You want to hear one of the coldest calls. Well, I know in the world of broadcasting and being a play-by-play analyst, and that's the world that you do work in, right? And everybody has something, you know what I'm saying, where it's a bang, boom, shakalaka, or that type of moment, right? Last night, and I don't know who said it on the call as far as the ESPN crew, but they said after Dalton hit that long three, he hit one and he came down, I think, 2 possessions later. 2 guys on him, and he just pulled up and banged the 3. And he said, that's enough. The NBA scouts have closed their notebooks. And that just blew my mind because, again, in those big moments in big-time games, you know there's somebody in the building, or that will be one of those tapes in his climb to the NBA, his training for the NBA, where they're breaking him down and you see him on draft night. That game right there and the way he played and those shots he took will be on the forefront of my tape if they're evaluating me.
Strong. I also loved that right before Dalton Connect took Janai Broome off the dribble and had a 2-handed dunk, Jimmy Dykes literally right before said, watch, he's going to take him off the dribble now. And then just goes right around Janai Broome. That was the amazing thing to watch. And Rick Barnes said after the game that with about 12 minutes left, they decided we need to get Dalton one-on-one with Broome in space, which was the best decision that Tennessee could have made last night. Janai Broome is an SEC Player of the Year contender himself and will be first-team All-SEC. But getting him where he's outside the paint and he's not quite as strong of a defender made all the difference in that game, where Dalton Connect was pulling up from long distance and then was just going right around him and dunking on him.
And that's also a smart coach by Barnes, too. You want to put your good on their good, right? Again, that's what you want on your highlight tape.
I got 2 things here for you. Hat tip to Ron Slay for tweeting about this last night about Dalton Connect not only being the potentially being the SEC Player of the Year, potentially being the Wooden Player of the Year, which is given to the best college basketball player in the nation. Currently, he has the second best odds, tied with R.J. Davis, to win the 2024 Wooden Award. And I also think I have a nickname for Dalton Connect.
Hit me.
What if he was DK Honky Kong? DK Honky Kong.
615-737-1045 is our number. I don't even know what to say to that. You've left me speechless at 6:15 in the morning.
It's DK.
Coming up.
I'm going to let you have that one, Bert, and I'm in agreement with you. However it rolls, okay? However it rolls.
Oh, my goodness. Coach Mack at Titans Radio will join us at 7:20 this morning. We'll dive more into Tennessee and Auburn and the history behind Dalton Connect's individual performance last night as Tennessee takes down Auburn. We'll do that in hour number 3 at 8:20. And Trevor Sikkema, lead draft analyst for Pro Football Focus, is going to stop by at 9:20 with tons to discuss from a busy day at the NFL Combine, where on-field workouts begin. Today, one of the final 2 days where every position group is working out. Measurements and on-field workouts beginning today for defensive linemen and linebackers, and media interviews for defensive backs and tight ends, who you'll be hearing from throughout the day. 615-737-1045, streaming live on 1045 The Zone TV. Coming up next, a deeper dive into the NFLPA survey that comes out once a year and tells a story about team cultures. What's the story they told about the Titans? We'll talk about it next. Thursday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW is brewed by 8th the Roast. Ramon Foster in Indy, Will Bowling in Nashville with Robert Walsh making the show go. I'm hearing myself right now.
That's my fault. I've got the daggum YouTube up, man.
Listen, I think for our listeners, one me is already probably one too many. We don't need a second one.
Well, the good thing is nobody on YouTube heard it. Everybody else can roast me, but those YouTube people can't.
Good. If the people on YouTube miss one sentence, nay, one word of audio that is played over this radio station, Bert, we can't hear it.
No audio.
Where is the audio?
This is why he
We're
ain't the
being
best
robbed.
producer.
Sorry. Anyway.
Why are y'all mocking him right now?
1045 The Zone TV is where you can also complain to Robert Walsh on the one time a year he messes up, because Robert Walsh doesn't make mistakes.
Only happy little mistakes.
It's not many. I swear it's not many, man. The dude is good. We were talking about him up here in Indy on the break. It was like, man, Bert's a special dude. Now, depending on how you define special, also.
Uh-oh.
I am who they think I am, Ramon. What you were talking about in the first segment, Let people think or be who they think you are.
Curbs.
Were you a small bus rider going to school?
Oh.
I know you were.
I didn't ride a small bus, but I did have a helmet.
Life's tough. Get a helmet. I love it. The sad thing about when people roast us, the one time a year Bert makes a mistake in the F&M Bank chat is typically that person has a name, and it's Ron Sylvester Slay is the person that is typically leading the charge of, I guess they don't care about us anymore, guys. It's kind of like when Jim rises up against, when Dwight rises up against Jim in the office. It's like, let's get Jim. He's in his office. Let's get him now. And no one's standing up. It's just Dwight. That's sometimes the way Slay comes after us.
Yeah,
it's okay, though.
It is, man. But that's our guy. He gonna always hold everybody accountable. That's a cool thing about all of us, I feel like, man. You know what I'm saying?
615-737-1045 on Twitter at Ramon Kayla Will, where you can vote on the best individual performance you have seen in person. Brian writes in, Derek's 200-plus yard game against the Jags when he had the 99-yard touchdown. I think that's a very solid pick.
Yeah, I would say that's really solid, too. Mine, of course, is I hadn't been going to events like that in a while. I will say I love the Jalen Hyatt pick that a lot of folks are going to have, right? But to me, Hendon Hooker, Florida. Hendon Hooker, Florida was probably legit.
I liked how you said it the first time. Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker, Florida.
Hendon Hooker, Florida. And I also shortened Florida. I said Florida. You know what I'm saying? Florida.
Yeah, you got to say it like what's that old show with Dynamite? You got to say it like
Good Times.
Good Times. You got to say it like his mama. Florida.
Florida Evans, baby. Look at Bert with a little culture behind him, man.
Justin writes in with an answer I did not expect this morning, Ramon, that of a game you played in.
What's that?
Says Arian Foster against Vandy in 2005. Said Tennessee lost, but he touched the ball 47 times. One of the best individual performances I've seen.
05. Yeah, I see that one. I raised you another one, too. What was it? Arian Foster, 07 Kentucky?
Okay.
07 Kentucky. I think he had over 200 yards rushing that game or something, if I'm not mistaken. It's either 06 or 07 because we were in Lexington. And
07.
07. He was just running like Forrest Gump, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was the 52-50 win where you guys won in 4 overtimes, and I was there freezing my butt off. Hey, at that time, he only had 27 carries for 118 in that one.
118.
So
it was.
You're thinking of a different game then.
It may have been 06.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, mine's got to be Jalen Hyatt. Don't overthink it.
Jalen Hyatt. Individual performances live. That one, I think Hendon Hooker, in recent history of mine, Hendon Hooker for sure, because I wasn't a big sports event guy going to a whole lot, just to be real, other than what I played in. I don't want to really reference that one, but seeing Hendon in that Florida game, to me, I thought showed a different style of him, and that was phenomenal, 100% phenomenal.
Absolutely fair. So, Ramon Foster, yesterday the NFLPA surveys come out, and a lot of stories are told around the league about good cultures, about bad cultures, and then about the majority of teams that are somewhere in the middle, right? Where you have some aspects of playing for an organization that are not perfect, where you get teams where travel is an F because you got to have a roommate, and some players don't like having a roommate. That was one of the situations the Titans found themselves in. Titans are one of 7 teams that make some of their players have roommates. The night before the game, I saw reporting from Paul Gaharski, paulgaharski.com, that his context on that said that it's only practice squad players and rookies who end up being the ones who have roommates as far as the Tennessee Titans are concerned. And he talked with a Tennessee Titan who gave further clarity on that. But Ramon, as you look at the grades the Titans were given, what stood out to you? Was anything overly concerning, since you do know what this survey is like and what this process entails?
I think this survey is somewhat accurate, somewhat not. Because, again, I tell you guys with this type of stuff, some players don't vote on it. Some players just have a young guy do the voting for them. But I think you get a generalized understanding of what the standards are and how NFL teams are, too. One thing I will say, the 2 teams that had the highest marks were Minnesota and Miami. Minnesota's at a huge disadvantage from everybody else, okay? I'm talking about a huge disadvantage from everybody else. Their practice facility is it's a building of its own. It's in a city of its own. We went up there for the preseason. They house their guys in the Omni Hotel. They have their own newest facility. They have one of the best medical teams I've ever seen. Coach Mack introduced me to one of their head medical guys when we were up there. And just the stuff that they do is just, they're very forward thinking. But you got to think, they just got a new stadium. They built their own resort, basically, when it comes down to training camp. And even when the Titans went up there, they hosted them in their sister hotel right next door to their facility. So it's very first class. You remember I came back from the Miami game, and we talked about it, Will. Remember the stadium? You was like, that stadium was built in 1987. But the upkeep of it was beyond amazing. Them going to the field was it was a show. You remember I talked about it, like they had like lights and they had cameras, they had just it was different. I will say I truly believe Miami and Minnesota are just way ahead of everybody else. But when it comes down to simple things that you just spoke about as far as travel, most of the times we have our own charter flight. Every team has their own charter flight. What you will get is a seat and a half. If there's 3 seats, there's either you got your seat and there's a seat in the middle and somebody else. That's usually how it works. And I've seen this be the case, too, as far as the Titans travel. I saw the Titans travel be a D? As far as
travel was an F.
Travel was an F. Here's the thing, too. So I've been on 2 planes the way it goes. In Pittsburgh, our situation was, and I think Pittsburgh didn't have high ratings as far as travel either because our travel schedule sucked. It did, and I'll be the first one to tell you we left at the same time every single week, but that's just the way that we operated. And, again, I was in one place seeing how that was. We left at 2 o'clock every single Saturday, no matter if we were going to the West Coast or if we were coming to Tennessee. Same exact story. The differences was the older guys that were or seasoned starters would sit in first class, and the coaches would sit in the business area right behind us and even in the back with everybody else. I didn't think nothing of it. I was like, well, the players are the product, and the players got to, be comfortable for the game. Most coaches are smaller than players anyway, so there's really no issue. And of course, the way the Titans described it in this survey is the players are in the back. That, to me, didn't seem to be an issue based on the fact that, look, you get a seat and a half when it comes down to you. There is an ample amount of space for guys on planes, but, of course, guys talk across the league. And there are situations where players come from different teams and they ask the question, you guys sit in the back? It's like, yeah, we always sit in the back. And I look at it in the case of maybe it's coach's philosophy. Maybe he wanted them in the back so they can have their own little world, too. So there's not a lot that goes, not a thought that goes into you sitting in the back of the plane or in first class, to me, when it comes down to that type of stuff.
Titans finished the season ranked 18th among NFL clubs who were all graded in terms of these categories of food and cafeteria, locker room, training staff, weight room, strength coach, and travel. Then new categories like owner, where the Titans gave Amy Adams-Strunk a B+. And Amy Adams-Strunk's willingness to invest in facilities.
Yeah, and that's always huge too. I saw Kansas City's owner got a F.
Yes, he did.
And you think to yourself, how does he get an F? Well, it said because he doesn't follow through on his promises on doing stuff for the players and their buildings and their facilities. That happens. The reality of all of this too is, and I don't think a lot of people will say it out loud until you bring it to them. The differences between how you're treated in college, what your facilities look like in college, the expectation of the training room, how big staffs are. You can have those graduate assistants as trainers in the locker room. Everything is so much bigger on the college level. Like, I do consider going from a place where with what's Tennessee like now, the Tennessee Vols football facilities like, and when I go to Pittsburgh, Tennessee Vols facilities blow the Steelers out of the water just because they got 2 full-length swim recovery pools. They got a big tank as far as the cold tub. They got massage therapists on call at all times. They have sleep rooms. NFL teams don't usually operate that. The way it was presented to me as a young guy, and some teams are different. Like when we went to London this past year with the Titans had massages set up. They had recovery rooms set up. They had all types of things set up as far as that goes. A lot of teams don't operate like that. Some have lived by the mindset, we're paying you over 6 figures minimum. How you rest and recover yourself is based upon how you want to invest in your body. A lot of guys have to understand with how the NFL works is not to keep you in there forever and let you just grow old. It's to get you in, get a service out of you, and find a replacement for you, because you, as an older guy, the older you get, the more expensive you get at times too. And I'm not making an excuse for it, but the conversation of if it's all bad, no, it's not all bad. There is a level of investments that some teams choose to, and that's maybe based upon how much money your ownership has also.
That is a good point, that in college football, when you're not paying the players, the money has to go somewhere, right? And so in an arms race where you can't entice someone as a tiebreaker of, hey, you're between me and my rival. Okay, well, the difference between you coming to me or going to my rival in the recruiting process is, do you like our facilities better than theirs? It's why college football is an arms race, because that is one of the tiebreakers, because you can't add on an extra $5 million a year. I guess you could now for some players and for the top level, but in the original state of college football, that was the case. I was talking with Charlie Burris of A to Z Sports about that on their podcast the other day about, like, yeah, the money's got to go somewhere, right? And so a lot of times you see college weight rooms that are the nicest, and then you've got some high school weight rooms that are as nice as pro weight rooms are and NFL weight rooms. I was just having this conversation about this the other day, and one of the things that stuck out to me, Ramon, the most from the quarterback documentary on Netflix was how many of those guys had chefs that literally would come to their house and make their whole family dinner. At that point, the nutrition aspect of it, if you really are a 2-3 contract, you're a first, second, third round pick, rookie contract level NFL player, if you really don't like the nutrition at your facility, you've got the cash to go ahead and just have somebody come cook you a nice meal in your house. I think that's an interesting perspective.
Yep. And that's the thing too, Will, is having the amount of players also account for it too. Like, I will say, I remember vividly when Deion Sanders went from Jackson State to Colorado, and he was super excited and posting videos of their facilities and stuff like that, and he showed their training room, right? And I was just, Colorado's Big 12, right, or Pac-12 now, or either one of those
Big 12.
conferences. And we have in the SEC, it just means more, right? So he was showing their facilities, and in their training room for the players, they had like frozen breakfast sandwiches, which probably coming from Jackson State to Colorado is awesome. Just grab something and go. And I'm thinking to myself, you never see that in the SEC. Frozen processed breakfast sandwiches, like it's made to order in the SEC. You look at some of LSU or Tennessee or Alabama or Georgia, their kitchens and training tables, they have full-time chefs, because that is a selling point of college football, as you just said. That is hey, I want to go there from this poverty area that I live in middle of Middle Tennessee or West Tennessee or South Texas somewhere, and I want to feel like I have the world at my hands. They have to provide those services for guys like that, right? Because you're trying to win as a coach, and they have no money to get rehab and to go to cryotherapy and those of those nature, so they got to facilitate all those things. That's why you see teams constantly upgrading their training rooms. The NFL is way different than college. But here's the thing about it. College has to sell more than the NFL does because the ultimate goal is to make it to the NFL.
615-737-1045 is our number. NFLPA surveys say that 94% of players felt like former Titans coach Mike Vrabel was efficient with players' time. And players also felt like Mike Vrabel was somewhat willing to listen to the locker room. Do you take anything meaningful away from these surveys?
It's fascinating as far as the coaching grades and stuff, Will, is what you're asking about?
Or just any of it in particular? Like you have a very good perspective of someone who represented the NFLPA when you were a Steeler, but you also, from a lot of conversations we have, will admit when guys are just being stupid sometimes also. So I feel like you've had a foot in both camps of these kind of conversations before.
I did, because this type of stuff comes out and people are criticized and clubs are criticized too, and probably rightfully so.
Like Washington's last again, right? Yeah. Like that's a trend that's relevant.
But here's the thing, though, too. It's two different worlds, Will, when it comes down to this type of stuff. The owners don't have a baseline for what they're required to do because the players don't hold the owners accountable when it comes down to negotiating a collective bargaining agreement. Like we used to just gripe about, well, Seattle Seahawks, they got an in-house cryo chamber. Well, that's because their owner wants to spend money on that. There is no rules or regulations say, hey, you 32 owners have to spend this. If you want that type of power, you have to be able to come together in moments of negotiating, save your money, be able to hold out, and advance yourself to that type of stuff. Hold them accountable, Will. To me, I love this type of stuff because it exposes the haves versus the have-nots in the NFL. And what's fascinating is when it comes down to putting on that union hat and doing business, a lot of guys choose not to because, oh, well, I'm getting paid, or this is not the most important thing to me, until you find out others are living better than you in Miami and Minnesota and places like that.
615-737-1045, our number. Coming up next, NCAA officials are meeting to discuss more changes to the recruiting calendar, and I'll be honest with you, this might be one of the worst ideas they've ever had. We'll give you the details next.
It's a big Saturday night in Smashville as the Preds continue a 5-game homestand on Saturday, March 2nd, this weekend, okay? See the Preds take on the Colorado Avalanche at 5 p.m. at Bridgestone Arena. The game will also be rivalry college night with fans from Alabama and Auburn showing their pride as part of the College Theme Night series with tickets including a branded college and Preds hat. Get tickets for the game at NashvillePredators.com/tickets, but never miss any games when you secure your season tickets, though, which just went on sale for the 24-25 season. This year, the Preds are giving you a jersey with your tickets, plus a ton of other great benefits. So lock in those seats at NashvillePredators.com/season tickets.
RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone with Ramon Foster in Indianapolis as a part of Titans Radio's NFL Combine coverage. I'm Will Bowling. Kayla Anderson with a very well-deserved day off. Robert Walsh making the show happen. And coming up in 15 minutes, more reaction to Tennessee and Auburn and the telling statement from Rick Barnes after win number 801 in his career last night in Knoxville. But Ramon Foster, I think the NCAA has come up with their worst idea yet.
What's that, Will?
A national signing day in June before high school football prospects even play their senior year.
Is this the model that they're trying to create after the NFL, have something in every season? Because if so, that waters it down somewhat to me. And I know there's a method to it, or why, because they hire people to figure this type of stuff out. But it takes away a little bit. But go ahead, Will. Give me a little bit more on this one.
So the midsummer period is new, and what used to be the early signing period in December, just before Christmas, that would be pushed before the start of bowl season and the college football playoff. So the first proposed signing period in June, per the NCAA, would be a 3 or 7 day period. The same goes for the December period that would come after the final regular season FBS game, and the traditional regular signing period in February would expire April 1st. So SEC coaches have already approved proposed changes to make the entire month of December a recruiting dead period and move the early signing period up 2 weeks, according to SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey.
This is so coaches can have lives, huh? Essentially, is what it's turning into. Well, everything's weird until it becomes normal. And here's the thing, I guess, behind it is these coaches are taking through the rigors of just trying to have balance in life. And that's one thing I think a lot of coaches have to convince their families on when they take these jobs is I'm doing this for us. This is a part of how we eat. This is a part of how we live. So you make those so small sacrifices. But now with so much NIL, so much recruiting, so much social media, there's been no dead period. There's been no designated, hey, we have us time, because there's balance to all of this. And as far as trying to sustain and be successful, and a lot of people lose their families. They don't know their kids until they're later and get more time or even more successful. So I get it. I just think it just carries on, and it take a little bit of the pop out of what was somewhat a high day for a lot of high school prospects. I know mine was, because everybody in America in 2004 signed at the exact same time, with some dudes being later. And then when I found out they were signing in December, I somewhat got that one, because that's for the early enrollees to get a jump on stuff. Everything is just sped up so fast these days, as far as the athlete, as far as the business of it, that it somewhat takes away the excitement, Will, on my end. I'll be honest, but I get it for the coaches.
So Greg Sankey is a proponent of moving the early signing day to the Wednesday before conference championship games, saying putting signing day in the middle of December with playoff games no longer works. I agree with that, certainly. And Sonny Cumbie, Louisiana Tech head coach, has said the hardest time is there is no time off in December. Christmas Eve from noon until Christmas Day, you're evaluating portal kids, talking to portal kids, visits with portal kids. It just doesn't ever stop. There is no time to turn it off. He says, I told our personnel director, don't send any more texts about players in the portal and leave everybody alone. That was about the only time you have off.
Wow.
And that's just to celebrate Christmas, right? There is change needed. And I think that the Wednesday before the conference championship games makes the most sense, because locking somebody in to a college commitment in June, I think, is unfair to all parties, because a senior season is so pivotal for so many of these guys, and your stock is either going to rise or it's going to fall substantially. And you're going to get players who are locked in at early signing day in June, and coaches are going to change their minds and say, oh, actually, this 5-star we wanted is going to accept our NIL offer after all, so we don't need you anymore. Yeah. Does that guy need to use a transfer? then after he gets to school to realize that, oh, maybe they didn't want me after all because they made me sign in June? Or, I mean, how does that work to me? Because you know that's going to happen, and you know it happens all the time where coaches make promises they can't keep. And if players take them up on those promises in June, what are the ramifications of that? I've heard stories so many times about, yeah, this coach told me he'd give me a scholarship offer if certain guys didn't commit. And you're sitting there waiting on National Signing Day, and there's no call from that coach who told you they would offer you if certain guys didn't commit. And what do you know? Those guys didn't commit.
And as you said just a second ago, I remember specifically Arian Carter getting better in his senior year, right? Like, those are the types of things that do happen. A June commitment is early. So for me, I committed, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like September, October to the Vols, and I took my visit in November. So it wasn't – I saw what the Vols were. I knew what my goals, and I knew exactly when signing day was. Everything was closer as far as decisions, having time to be recruited more and play out my senior year. There should be a better method to the madness. Here's the thing, though, too. The recruiting sites also have a huge implication in this, too. These ratings going up and down and players being ranked in, and there's a lot that has to be stabilized as far as the operation of college sports in general, I think, moving forward.
I think you could also just totally get rid of the December signing period itself. Just have February. Go back to having one.
The guys that early enrolled with us just signed and came on campus.
I know. That's fair. That's fair. 615-737-1045 is our number if you want to jump in. Coming up, more about Dalton Connect and the historic performance he put together for the Vols in a big win over Auburn. Where does it rank among the top performances that maybe you've seen in person as well? We've got more submissions on that, some good ones in here to talk about next.
7:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The NFLPA report cards are out, and the Titans are one of 5 teams to not receive an A in any category, but B's and C's get degrees. The Titans ranked 18th out of 32 teams and received their highest grade in ownership, strength coach, weight room, and head coach, while their lowest grade came in on team travel, where they received an F. The Kansas City Chiefs were busy yesterday, giving L'Jarius Sneed an opportunity to seek and find his own trade, while also releasing Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Over 2 years with the Chiefs, MVS caught 63 passes, 1,002 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The release saves Kansas City around $12.5 million. Michael Pittman hopefuls could go ahead and stop holding their breath, as Colts general manager gave an update yesterday saying Pittman would remain on the Colts roster in 2024 through whether the franchise tag option or an extension. The tag remains an option if the team can't get a deal done by March 5th. And the Vols take down Auburn 92-84. Dalton Connect, Honky Kong, was a superstar, scoring 39 points in 33 minutes to take down the 11th ranked team in the nation. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Thursday morning continues on RKW, brewed up by 8th and Roast, Ramon, Kayla, and Will. From the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, he is our 11-year NFL veteran and Vault for Life, Ramon Foster. Kayla Anderson with the morning off. Robert Walsh making the show happen. My name is Will Bowling, 615-737-1045, our number. And Titans Radio's head coach, Coach Dave McGinnis, will join us coming up in 15 minutes. We'll talk to him about how you value a playmaker versus a pass blocker and continue the conversation that Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan had with the media this week in Indy. But first, Ramon Foster, I feel like we've got to talk about these new opens that Robert has made for us.
I was hoping you made time for this, Will, because Bert shocked us with this. He said he was cooking something up as far as the new intros and stuff like that. I'm just trying to figure out, where did he get that last voice from all of us from, okay? Because it sounds like Joe Hunk raging frat boy voice at the door is what that sounded like to me. Will, that was hilarious. Is that a Joe Hunk impersonation we were all doing again, Bert?
So that's how it started. I believe that Kayla Anderson did a Hunk impression, and then on the show we said, that sounded too fratty, and then both of you gave us a frat impression. I think I've had that saved since like November. So I was going back trying to find stuff to put in the open, and I was like, I think I can make a frat star version.
I'm looking forward to now every open that we have, Bert, because those were good. And we say so much stuff. I don't know what you're saving. I don't know how it's going to sound whenever you replay it. And I'm excited to see what's next after this, Bert. Not to put any pressure on you, but I'm genuinely excited now.
Well, there is no pressure on me because I've already made them. I just hope you like them. And I ain't changing it. There's no editorial decisions to be made. That's what they are, dadgummit.
I'm not going to, so quit asking.
Quit asking.
Pressure makes diamonds, which is what Cheyenne will get as soon as Lamar gets one.
There you go. There you go. At least somebody's on my team, man. At least somebody's on my team.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that, Bert. Nothing wrong with that, brother.
Last night, Tennessee 92, Auburn 84, over a 7-minute, 37-second span in the second half, Ramon Foster. Dalton Connect took Tennessee from an 8-point deficit to a 5-point lead, scoring 23 of Tennessee's 27 points over that span. 39 points, tying his career high. 12 of 21, 5 of 8 from 3, 10 of 12 at the free throw line, and 3 steals while battling foul trouble. Over the final 12 minutes, Ramon, of the second half, Dalton Connect outscored Auburn 25-21 by himself.
It was an amazing display of talent, man, and also not folding under pressure. I was insanely impressed by it. And I'll say this, too. The second half start of the game, let's just say we went up by 7 or 8 and then down by 9. And everybody's just wondering at the same time, okay, when is it Dalton time? And you said this earlier, Will. The announcers was like, at this point, it seems like there's a guy by the name of Dalton Connect that needs to take over. And he did. And you're thinking to yourself, everybody knows you're about to do these things. And he still did them. Big-time players rise up in moments like this. And it wasn't just him shooting the three. It wasn't just him, taking guys. He became a facilitator when they started to double-team him. And overly impressed by his game. So like, I see why a guy who's a scorer, and I'll be honest, one of the players I like in the NBA, Kevin Durant, brags about him, comments under his posts, and I'm sure probably has a relationship with him because of Coach Barnes too. But I get it. He is a walking bucket, and the defense has its deficiencies. He lost his man a couple of times last night, but that many points, he beat a whole team in the last 12 minutes by himself, and everybody knew he was going to do it.
It's amazing what Rick Barnes had to say last night, a guy who has now won 801 games as a men's college basketball coach, and said it is one of the best performances I've ever been able to see. The guy's watched a lot of basketball, and he went on to say, J.J. Redick did it to us. He torched us for 41 one night. And Rick Barnes went on to say, I'm telling you, when you sit there, you feel helpless because of the shots he makes and just trying to guard him the best you can. But when he gets going, it's hard to guard. He was 9 for his last 11 in the last 11 minutes of the game.
Yeah. And the other side of it, too, he ended up creating a couple turnovers, made a couple big rebounds at times. And the cool thing was also is his teammates having the ability to facilitate for him also. And it wasn't in a selfish role. It was, hey, this guy's hot, and they did everything that you needed them to do. I'll say this, too, and I know he got in foul trouble early, but Santi Vescovi, whenever he came back later in the game, his ability to be that veteran guy, and I don't know why I feel like I'm somewhat picking on Vescovi, but the demand for him to be good in big-time games, it showed up big-time last night in small doses. It ain't like he had 14, 15, 20 points. He just had moments, and I say the same thing about Zagai, too.
It is interesting with this Tennessee team. I was thinking about this earlier today, that you get guys like Santiago Vescovi and Josiah Jordan-James as pros, and all of a sudden your role players at the professional level have been dudes at the college level. Well, Tennessee has that. Santiago Vescovi is a first-team All-SEC player who is now a very good role player glue guy for this team. Josiah Jordan-James is the same way. He's a guy that can play all 5 positions on the floor. He can make a shot when you need him to. He plays excellent defense. He understands the culture that Rick Barnes wants to create within that locker room. But at the same time, he's a role player. And again, that's a guy who he's a 5-star out of high school. He's an all-SEC talent. That's the incredible thing to me, Ramon, about this team is that they have got role players who have been guys like you do on an NBA team.
And here's another thing, too, that I think is being overshadowed because of the performance of Dalton Connect. The balance and coaching that Rick Barnes had last night also. There was moments in this game where he took advantage of the media timeout that happened, I think, right under the 4-minute mark, or it may have been the 8-minute mark. I think Auburn took a timeout. Dalton comes on the court, and then he took him out at about 6 minutes to give him a breather, and then the 4-minute media mark came back, and he was back in the game. That balance right there as far as coaching, to me, I thought was huge on Rick Barnes' part because, again, when you have a guy like that, you know you need him on the court. But the ability to rest him and have him finish out and close games, I thought was big on him. You understand why he's been in the league that long and why he's got over 800 wins now.
Alabama goes to Oxford, picks up a big win over Ole Miss, so it will be Tennessee and Alabama Saturday in Tuscaloosa with College game day on the court beforehand in Coleman Coliseum for essentially an SEC championship game. Saturday night. There is a scenario where they share the SEC title, and unless I'm wrong, and Ron Slay's been hanging out in the F&M Bank chat on YouTube, so maybe he can correct me quickly if I'm wrong. But the way I've understood it, even if you beat a team, you still share the SEC championship if you and another team have the same record. Now, Tennessee's head-to-head record with Alabama, if they were to win on Saturday, would give them a tiebreaker if all things were equal by the end of the season after these final 3 games. So there is still a very real possibility that Tennessee and Alabama share the SEC championship in hoops this year. But this does feel like an SEC championship kind of game at Saturday in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, I ain't no other way around it. This environment will be very football-like. There will be a lot of toxic things said. Hopefully the game is officiated appropriately. I thought last night it became fair. The start of the second half, there was a lot of fouls that were called, I think, to get control of either the crowd or the players. I know each side didn't like it, but I thought in fairness of calls and fouls being administered throughout the course of the second half, it ended up being even. Both teams were in the bonus and double bonus by the end, but I think by the 8-minute mark. So it's not like one team had an advantage. I just hope we don't have an egregious crew that wants to get their stripes seen on TV.
Coming up next, Titans Radio's head coach joins us. Coach Dave McGinnis breaks down the differences in value between a playmaker and a pass blocker. And interested to ask Coach Mack why he thinks so many coaches are starting to just not go to the combine at all and view things differently from a newer perspective. Titans Radio's head coach, live from Indianapolis, joins us next.
So the good news is we're almost done with February, so we're going to get into those spring months. Maybe you're going to be able to get out more. Your body's going to feel like it's getting some exercise. But this is the time of year we're feeling a little down. Maybe we don't have that energy. And toxins are building up in our body every single day, from really the air we breathe to the food that we eat. And sometimes you can feel like you're carrying around that excess weight. That also can cause you to prematurely age, and none of us want that. And that's why you need to change your body with the Youthful Cleanse by Daily Defense. Sometimes I think people get a little freaked out when they think of a cleanse, but this is about as simple as it gets. No need to change your diet, no juices or anything like that. Just a couple of vitamins, and really you will be feeling good again. Have some more energy as you want to do the things you want to do in life. Also, at membersnutrition.com, you can also get an array of vitamins. I am on their probiotic right now, which I really enjoy. So if you want to take control of your health, take control of your life, go ahead and try the Youthful Cleanse today at membersnutrition.com.
Every visit with Titans Radio's head coach is presented by our friends at Two Rivers Ford, Middle Tennessee's most trusted local Ford dealership for 40 years. And right now from Indy, we've got Coach Dave McGinnis at the table with Ramon Foster. I'm Will Bowling, Kayla Anderson with the morning off, and Robert Walsh making the show happen. Coach Mack, what's going on?
Well, how are you doing? I'm doing great. I mean, we've been grinding here and going from dawn till dusk here at the Combine. I walked in here this morning, and there was one radio set up and going. 1045 The Zone, Alan Kirby, and Ramon Foster. They are first on the scene all week in here. This place is filling up fast now. Is Bert on the line right now?
I'm in here, Coach.
Okay, look, just talk to me real quick about the flat defender. Just give me a short synopsis of this, and I'll give you my thoughts. Just go.
Okay, so I was saying if I was going to try out for the Nashville Cats, my best role on defense would be a flat defender.
Okay, stop. We're done. Okay, let me just say this, Bert. First of all, I would never, ever put you in space. You do not need to be in space, number one. You would hurt the team, and you would hurt yourself. So that's number one. If you're going to do anything, you're going to have your hand on the ground eating up double teams. That's it. All right, let's go on with something else.
Well, that's exactly why I said instead of being a flat defender, you said I would be served as a fat defender.
Yeah, well, and that's a part of it. But a part of it, too, would be just, as I said, you would hurt the team and you would hurt yourself. All right, now we're done.
Coach Mack, you know what's crazy? We didn't discuss this at all. That's exactly what I told Bert yesterday. I said, it's your weakness to put you in space like that. Like, we can't allow that, Coach Mack, for the betterment of the team.
Bert, and look, for you, when you go to sleep and dreaming at night, you can be a space defender. You can be out in space doing things, flipping your hips, all that kind of stuff. In reality, you put both hands on the ground in a 4-point stance and just eat up double teams.
Saying you want to be like the flattened defender is like saying, if I was a snack, I want to be the gum on somebody's shoe.
No, he didn't say flattened defender. He said flat defender, where he wants to work out in space, curl to flat. Okay. I know what he means, and I know what he's dreaming about, but it's not possible, and I'm not here to blow smoke and tell you that can happen. It can't.
Well, I'm the one, I guess, saying that flattened defender is what you would be if you were open in space, Robert Wall.
Coach Mack.
He would not be, because he would not touch anybody.
Coach Mack, in high school, they used to call me the astronaut because I was so good in space.
All right, you get Uranus back over there in that control room for the microphone.
There we have it.
Coach Dave McGinnis.
I'm looking over here at Charles Davis right now, and he's just shaking his head.
Yeah. Hey, Bert, response? What's your reaction to your assessment? This is your Combine live on air right now, Bert. What's your response?
Hey, I just want to do what's best for the team. If Coach Mack wants me to be in the middle of the defense, if he wants me to be in the middle of the bench, wherever he wants me, that's where I'm going to be at.
Thanks, Bert.
There you go.
That's a team. That's a team player. You can dream, but it ain't happening in space.
Coach Mack with us, courtesy of Two Rivers Ford here Thursdays on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Coach Mack, Brian Callahan talked a lot the other day when making the rounds at Indy about valuing playmakers in Cincinnati over pass blockers. He said, when all things are equal, I want the guy that can score points. What is your reaction to hearing him talk about that, and how do you value someone like a Roma Dunze, Jamar Chase when he was in Cincinnati versus a pass blocker?
Well, I mean, look, the great thing about the game of football is it takes all different types of skill sets and all different types of body types, all different types of, but everybody has to contribute. Yeah. And so it depends on what the strengths and weaknesses of your team are and what you're trying to build. You need everybody. You need people that can protect. You need guys that can catch the ball and score with it. You need guys that can throw it. What he was saying, and it was, look, that was a vet move at the podium. It's because all of a sudden now everybody's going, well, okay, now what are they going to do? Maybe what? See, this is the time of year right now where here's what you say is exactly what you want people to hear. And that's what you do. That was a vet move. So he's not devaluing the pass protectors. I mean, he not at all. But he's also not going to tell you what he's going to do or what they are thinking this far away from the draft. It's just not going to happen.
And Coach Mack, the other side of this too is that's a valid statement, but it's also a blanketed one, as you just said, because any coach, especially an offensive-minded coach, when you got a young quarterback or you got a veteran quarterback that you believe in, there's no amount of weapons that's enough, Coach Mack.
No, but you've got to keep him upright to throw it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just because people are getting paid a lot of money on the other side to keep him from throwing it, and to, as we say, get him off the spot. So he wasn't devaluing anything. He was just making a statement, and people will put a whole lot of credence into that because it goes to the Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell, that they lived in real life, and it worked out for both players. It worked out for Jamar Chase, and it worked out for Penei Sewell.
And Coach Mack, when you view this week, a lot is going to be said from the players at the podium, and as far as the evaluation of these guys too, what is the real thing front office guys, coaches, and scouts are looking to obtain or see be a reality this week for the guys that are competing?
First of all, medical.
Okay.
The first thing is the medical, and then whether you're doing virtually, which a lot of people are with the interviews. Look, you've got 45 guys for 18 minutes. Now it takes 2 minutes to kind of introduce everybody. All right, so this is just a real quick glance and look. Most all of these players have been interviewed by scouts already, during the season. But the medicals are the huge part of this right here. Very, very big part of this. That's extremely, extremely important. And then just watching how people react. One of the main things that goes on here is the group leaders that lead the various positions around.
Yeah.
You were involved in this.
Yeah.
You get reports from those guys every day. Here's who's on time. Here's who's late. Here's who we have to go knock on the door. You're constantly evaluated here. These players are constantly evaluated here from the minute they've gotten off the plane here at Indianapolis. So you ask me what is the most important? The most important is how you conduct yourself in everything you're involved in.
And Coach Mack, I tell people this event, the Combine, is a lot about figuring out how much they can get out of you as far as the medical, how you move, how you are as a person, how charismatic you are too. For the ones that have the medical issues, here's the thing that you also notice too, Coach Mack. Guys will have those red flags and still go high. What's the separator in saying he has a deficiency here or a knee or shoulder, but we still like him in the first 2 rounds?
It's your medical people.
Okay.
It's your medical people say, you know what, the shoulder has an issue. It can be repaired, and here's a recovery time, or it's been repaired, but we can work with this. And then you will ask as a coach, and you will ask as an organization, how long? How long? What do you see in this? And that's why your medical people are very, very important. Very important. And here's the other thing too. They share all of the information, but it could be interpreted differently in 32 different medical rooms.
That's a huge point right there,
It
Coach
could be
Mack.
interpreted differently. I know it. I mean, I've lived it. It can be interpreted differently at different places, and it boils down to how much of a risk with an injured player is your organization willing to take based on what your medical people have told you.
And a player that pops up instantly for me is in recent history is Trey Smith. Kansas City has a staff that was willing to work with a player like him, is what you're essentially saying.
Yeah, and of course, and he had a legitimate life issue.
Yes, absolutely.
It was a legitimate life issue, but what they said it can be. I don't know. I don't know the specifics. I didn't see it, but clearly they said it can be managed, and they've made it work,
and they've benefited.
Coach Mack, when we talk about players on the offensive line specifically who Bill Callahan could coach up, I know Brian was asked about that the other day too and said, I always want elite talents because when you marry an elite talent with a great staff, you get something special. But we would also like to think that we have a staff that can pull the best out of players as well. When we have the discussion about, hey, Bill Callahan took DeJuan Jones last year, who's, I believe, a day 2 guy, turns him into an all-rookie guy at the tackle position from Ohio State. What are the traits at that position specifically he will be looking for to then go to his son and go to the other members of that staff and Iran Carthon and say, I can work with this guy.
I can tell you this. I've had several of the scouts. You know, they had a big, major meeting that lasted several days with this scouting group here and with the coaches. The coaches put together profile tapes of what they're looking for their position. And I've had numerous of these scouts here. In fact, you know, one came up to me last night as I was getting on the elevator, you know, and said, Coach Mack, the presentation that Bill Callahan made with his profile tapes telling us what he is looking for and how he can fix this, how he can fix that, but this is what he specifically says, you know, I can't fix this, I can absolutely work with. He said that presentation opened everybody's eyes.
Wow.
Because Bill Callahan is the absolute best. Yeah. He is the absolute best at that. I wasn't in that meeting. I don't know, but I do know this. If an offensive lineman is picked by the Tennessee Titans or the linemen that are here, he's already gone through every lineman's plays that are here, and he can point out, I can fix this guy. Here's what I can do. I'm fascinated to watch this, but I can speak with some clarity on this. I've coached a lot of defenses against Bill Callahan's offensive lines, and there's very, very few times that you are going to trick them as a unit. And that to me is, so I can't tell you specifically, but in that meeting, I would have loved to have been in that meeting and listened to that hour presentation with tape saying, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I can fix, here's the problem here, here's the problem there. We've got the dude. And that was one of the biggest gets. You know, Brian Callahan, that was a big jump start to his young head coaching career to be able to get the top offensive line coach in the league that just so happens to be his father.
Coach Mack, when we're discussing the comparison between wide receiver versus DB, guys who play that position, and we're talking about evaluation of players at specific spots, how do you differentiate between who plays O-line, Coach Mack, from a coaching perspective, either in college or high school, to the ones that play D-tackle? What are traits that separate the two positions just from a body, movement, and just personality?
They all three factor.
Oh, okay.
Because to me, an offensive lineman, and all due respect sitting here, have a different mindset.
We do.
Than different players, and they're a little more calculated, you know, and plus, offensive linemen, it's a herd mentality.
Yeah.
It's a herd mentality. Defensive players, it's a team mentality, but it's also, you know, an individual. I mean, you've got to understand as a defensive player, you are trying to make an offensive player react to what you do. As an offensive player, especially on the line, you've got to be pretty analytical because you've got to react to what's going on, you know, full speed. I mean, there's a personality difference. There really is. But the thing that is a truism for offensive and defensive linemen that make it in the National Football League is this: there are very few humans on earth that have the ability to move their feet and still have size that can play at this level. That's why all of these alternate leagues that you see, the biggest failure is the offensive linemen. They're not there. They can't move their feet. So the defensive linemen always dominate those leagues. They always dominate those leagues. So there's a major difference. A major difference.
Coach Mack, we've been talking this morning about the best individual performances that we have ever seen in person. You have watched a lot of football games in person. Is there one individual performance by one player that stands out to you as the best you have seen in person?
Well,
I know that's a broad question.
Yeah, well, yeah.
To say the least.
You're talking about a lot of years, a lot of games. I've been in over 700 NFL games. So, I mean, you know, to me, I mean, I can't, you know, I coach some Hall of Fame players. So would just not be, to your question, Will, it would not be just one individual performance. It would be a consistent performance of greatness over a period of time. Mm-hmm. I witnessed Walter Payton.
That's crazy.
I witnessed Mike Singletary. You know, I was with Emmitt Smith at the end of his career. You know, those are legacy players. but they did it over a period of time. They weren't just a one-show pony, and it was over.
Right.
It was the consistency at a high level that puts a top value on the people, and that's why I think now, that's why they're wearing gold jackets.
That's also, Coach Mack, that word consistency. That's also what separates the ones that do, even at the ones that are non-Hall of Famers, to the ones that get a shot. Consistency, Coach Mack, is what you're looking for at this time of the year from these young prospects, and also just in the pro leagues also, Coach Mack, from high-caliber athletes.
Yes. And that's what it's availability.
Yes.
It's consistency, and it's the ability to be a pro. And being a pro doesn't even have anything to do with getting paid to play. Getting paid to play and being a professional are two distinctly different entities, completely.
Well, I'll tell you this, man. So those NFLPA grades came out, and they're talking about coaches and facilities and travel. Coach Mack, up here in Macanapolis, A+. I just need you to know that.
Is that the grade for you guys or for the St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail that you've already had this week?
Yes is the answer, okay?
I was so happy. I was so happy to take Titans radio to St. Elmo's. Jim Wyatt was with us. It was his first time ever. Ramon Foster was there. They always give me the table that I want downstairs because I know we're going to be loud. It was an evening. It was an evening, and I always set it up. They always have a table for me, and I get it set up where we're there about 6 o'clock, so that you can stay there as long as you want, but you're still not going to ruin your day the next day. But it was pretty fabulous. But I don't know if Jim White shared it or not on social media. I'm not on social media, but Mike Keith, being the pro that he is, and being the stealth bomber that he is too. We knew that Jim White, when he took his first bite of that shrimp cocktail with that horseradish, he was filming it, and he filmed it, and it's worthy. But he sent it to Wyatt and said, "Look, I'm not going to post this. It's yours. Do with it what you want," he said. "But I think if you do, it'll get 1 million hits."
Kirby Allen Kirby filmed me having my first one 2 years ago on my first trip to Indy.
Over here. Kirby was smiling, sitting right over here.
That's right.
Man. He was smiling, looking at me. So he did that to you, Will. See, and it's a shock to the system.
It is.
And if you can hear about it all that you want, and he did it like a gentleman, which he is. He put it on his plate. It had a good, but he cut it with a fork. And I've never do what you want to do. Put it in his mouth. He was looking, and all of a sudden, when that thing went up his nasal cavity,
it's different.
It's different. Thank you. There you go.
It's different.
Hits you like Devondre Sweat coming down after a 40-yard dash.
Because that's real grade A horseradish.
Yeah,
it is.
a lot of it.
It's not the stuff that you buy where you squeeze it out of a bottle. That is real graded horseradish. And so I don't know if Jim White's shared that. That's not my purview to do that, but I provided the ability for him to experience it.
Love it. Coach Mack, making us smarter every Thursday morning here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Mack, thank you.
Oh, Will, it's always a pleasure. And, hey, Bert, we made you smarter, too, because now you know what your limitations are. It's not a degrading thing. It's just reality.
Back here working on my footwork, Coach Mack.
Don't worry about your footwork. Get your hand in the ground. Get low. Get low. Low man wins.
Let's get the handwork going and send us to break. The Fat Defender sends us to break. It's RKW 104.5 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster for Genesis Diamonds, and it's a huge event this weekend that I'm excited about, okay? It's their Rolex event coming up this weekend at Genesis Diamonds. It's your chance to get that rare, hard-to-find luxury timepiece. It's this Thursday, today, Friday, and Saturday. Genesis is hosting an epic pre-owned luxury Rolex event featuring a stunning new selection of hard-to-find Rolex models. All the hottest models that people wait years for, okay? These are carefully chosen timepieces in pristine condition. During this event, You can take advantage of their special pricing and zero interest financing also. And listen to this. With the purchase of any luxury pre-owned Rolex at this event, Genesis will give you a pair of 2-carat lab-grown diamond stud earrings for free. That's a $4,000 value. And also for this event, Genesis pre-owned Rolex buyers are on site. They will be offering top dollar for your Rolex so you can buy, sell, or trade. Come see the largest selection of luxury pre-owned Rolex watches in the state and take advantage of the special financing and get a pair of 2-carat lab-grown diamond stud earrings for free. It's today, Friday, and Saturday only at Genesis Diamonds, your home for luxury pre-owned Rolexes. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Thursday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW is brewed up by 8th and Roast, locally owned and operated by lifelong friends turned business partners who design local coffee shops as a way to feel welcome, connected, and part of a community. 8th Avenue, Charlotte, the airport, or the Broadview at Vanderbilt is where you can find them. Our friend Kayla Anderson was stopping by the 8th and Roast in the airport this morning on her way out for vacation. As always, that's what we always do as well. Say at every trip, there's a little trip to 8th and Roast before we make our trip wherever we're going.
Gotta make a stop, and they are efficient as ever to getting you.
Yes, they
are.
are.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Good locations too around the airport.
Mm-hmm. Well, yesterday, Ramon, in Indy, Colts general manager Chris Ballard offered a very succinct yet direct prediction on whether or not Michael Pittman Jr. will play for the Indianapolis Colts next year. He said yes, and then that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say. He said yes, and then that was it. That was his only reply. And then, said franchise tag, a tool we have. I'm not going to say we're not going to use it. Not going to say we are. Yada, 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 all those things. You know the Colts haven't used the franchise tag since it was put on Pat McAfee in 2013?
Get out of here.
You have to have good free agents to want to use the franchise tag.
That's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or guys who are just not starting to bud, right? So, yeah, those are the type of things you run into. The thing is, Quentin Nelson, one of the last big big signings, just got an extension. That's what you want. That's how you want to operate. Not having to do a franchise tag keeps your cap lower than expected because you got to pay that 1 year. And if they have another good year, then that market rises up higher and higher. So, teams that manage well try to do those types of things, man, where you don't have to use that franchise tag if you don't need to.
Teams have until next Tuesday at 3 o'clock Central to designate a franchise player. The accompanying 1 year salary for a franchised wide receiver this year is $21.816 million. And essentially what Chris Ballard has said is if we can't get a deal done, he's going to be here on the tag next year. Michael Pittman, however, his preference is to test the open market, but it looks like he will not be given that opportunity.
No, absolutely not, man. He's a solid player. He's good for their team also, and you can tell his projection shows him getting better and better over the last couple of years, and until they figure out what their quarterback situation is, it's best for them to not bring in other young guys. It's better for them to have a veteran guy now like Michael Pittman Jr. that can be a pass catcher for him, that can also be a guy to carry their culture on because they're relatively younger in their skill positions. And having him be a mainstay, which Indy has somewhat always done with their wide receivers that they care about. I don't care if it's T.Y. Higgins or whoever. They always have them a guy. Michael Pittman Jr. is the next one up to sustain that stability that they've had at that position for a little while, as far as having just one of those dudes.
So today at the NFL Combine, here on Leap Day, you have defensive linebackers – defensive linemen and linebackers. Sure, defensive linebackers doing measurements and on-field workouts, ortho exam, media interviews, NFLPA meeting, and team interviews for defensive backs and tight ends, general medical exams, pre-ordered studies, and broadcast interviews for running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers, and then offensive linemen, kickers, and special teamers have pre-exam, NFL meeting, and team interviews today.
Yesterday, Rhett, Brian, and I went to a to T'Vondre Sweat podium, man, moments that he had up there. He had about maybe 10 minutes availability. That guy is hilarious. I know I've talked a lot about him. I've said that I'd love for the Titans to get some D-tackle help from a dude like him. But as far as just sureness of himself, he has that confidence and charisma and somewhat backs it up, and everybody's asking about his weight and stuff like that and how, what kind of system he fits in. And he just controlled the podium and just said, wait till you guys see my 40 speed. And everybody's like, what are you going to run? What are you going to run? Just wait till you see it, just teasing and teasing. It's like, give us a number. And he said a 4.4. So, Bert, he also have aspirations like you to be a guy that's a thick six, you know what I'm saying, that's capable of running fast, Bert. So it's not just you.
I always said thick sixes. That's what I dated in college. So when it comes to
oh my God,
when it comes to T'Vondre Sweat, why do y'all When it comes to
Can't
Devondre,
just say things like that and then keep going and have a civilized conversation.
we have to keep moving, or else somebody will think about it too much. When it comes to Devondre Sweat not weighing in, can that be a deterrent for some teams, or are they going to find out what they need to find out about him without the weigh-in?
So he didn't have to weigh in at the Senior Bowl, and he didn't. I'm glad he didn't also. I will say from where we saw him a month ago at the Senior Bowl with what he looks like now, he's shrunk. He's shrunk. Why put that label on you if you don't have to? Again, I think we'll see a lot of these players control their narratives when they can, and he controlled it at the Senior Bowl by not weighing in. He said he was comfortable at playing at like 360. I truly think he's low 40s. I'll take a bet with one of you guys with what I think I'm eyeballing with him. I think he's holding 345 or less right now.
Robert Walsh consistently just drops grenades into this radio program.
He did.
And sometimes I need a minute.
I got to tell Coach Mack, Bert said his standards in college, as we were talking about the thick sixes of, big boys and stuff, he said that's all he dated in college was thick sixes, Coach Mack.
Why you got to embarrass me like this in front of Coach Mack?
I hear a head shake happening from Coach Mack right now. I don't hear any laughter.
Why you got to fight with me at Cheesecake? You know I love to go there.
I'm acting light-skinned. My bad.
It's a place for families who drive Camrys and go to Disney. And coming up next, it'll be a place for you to listen to Hour 3 of Ramon, Kayla, and Will.
It's Ramon Foster for Artisan Custom Closets, y'all. Y'all can get a jump on spring cleaning and transform your home into an oasis of calm with Artisan Custom Closets. Say goodbye to the clutter and hello to custom storage solutions that are made to suit you, your style, and your budget. If you're tired of unorganized chaos in your closet, garage, or office, let the expert designers at Artisan Custom Closets help you get organized in any space in your home. From your walk-in closets to pantries to garages or laundry rooms, Artisan Custom Closets is local. That's what I love about them, okay? It's not a large chain business. Not only is it local, though, but their products are manufactured right in the Southeast where we are. It's not a cookie-cutter item, but customized to your home, for your home. So start your free in-house design consultation. Take advantage of their multiple financing options to make getting organized easier than ever. Schedule your consultation now to bring some calm and get organized. You can call them at 615-800-2199 or visit them at artisancustomclosets.com to book your appointment. That's artisancustomclosets.com.
Good morning. 8 o'clock from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The NFLPA report cards are out, and the Titans were one of 5 teams to not receive an A in any category, but B's and C's get degrees. The Titans ranked 18th out of 32 teams and received their highest grade in ownership, strength coach, weight room, and head coach, where they received B's, while their lowest grade came on team travel, where they received an F. The Chiefs were busy yesterday, giving L'Jarius Sneed an opportunity to go out and seek his own trade, but they also released wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Over 2 years with the Chiefs, MVS caught 63 passes for 1,002 yards and 3 touchdowns. The release saves Kansas City just around $12.5 million. Michael Pittman hopefuls can go ahead and stop holding their breath, as the Colts general manager Chris Greer gave an update yesterday saying Michael Pittman will remain on the team in 2024 through franchise tag or extension. Basically, hell or high water, he is going to be on the Colts. The franchise tag remains an option if the teams can't get a deal done by March 5th. And the Vols take down Auburn 92-84. Dalton Knecht was a superstar, scoring 39 points in 33 minutes to take down the 11th-ranked team in the nation. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second half of the show starts right now on a Thursday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Happy Friday, Junior, to all who celebrate. RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast with locations on 8th Avenue, Charlotte, and the airport. 8th and Roast Coffee cultivates community by the cup. They got a brand new spot as well, the Broadview at Vanderbilt. You got to check out. Shiny new store that'll get you caffeinated and ready to go for your day. From Indianapolis at the NFL Combine as a part of Titans Radio's coverage, we've got our 11-year NFL veteran Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson with the morning off, Robert Walsh making the show go. My name is Will Bowling. 615-737-1045, our number. And Ramon Foster on Twitter is where you can vote on our question of the day here on the program. What is the best individual performance you have seen as a fan in person? We've had some good submissions. Your submission goes to an underrated Hendon Hooker performance against Florida in 2022.
Yeah, man. The reason for that, I just saw him duel. You know, that game was a high-scoring game, and it was going to go to the guy that played the best. And Hendon in that day against Anthony Richardson, man, answered every single call that you could have for a quarterback in a challenging situation. Only thing he had going in his way was the fact that he was at home in Knoxville. But when you evaluate how he played and who he was playing against and how that game was flowing and the throws that he made, I was amazed at just how he put on the clinic that day.
Certainly. It's a good option. I'm going Jalen Hyatt. Tennessee, Alabama, obviously. The 5 touchdowns speaks for themselves. We've got some submissions. BP on Twitter says, went to a Travis Tritt show back in 96, and he was getting after it. Outside the box, but acceptable.
Acceptable.
Another answer for Tennessee, Ole Miss, Chuck Webb for Tennessee. Set the single-game rushing record that still stands. Fair. Yeah. And then Jeffrey adds Derrick Henry several times. Honestly, this list for a lot of people in this city will just be Derrick Henry performances, and that's completely fair.
That's true. Did you witness one of those 200-yard games in person? Like, did you the one where he turned the Jacksonville Jaguars player around? That was in Nashville, wasn't it?
It was. That was Thursday Night Football in 2018. I was a senior at Tennessee, and I was sitting at Wild Wing Cafe in Turkey Creek watching that game with 2 of my buddies. That was a where were you moment in Titans history, for sure.
Yeah, I just never saw a guy use somebody's body as a shield to turn them around, flip them, and still run a touchdown. I still contend that's probably one of the most embarrassing defensive displays of football I've ever seen from a NFL team.
100%.
That was quite embarrassing.
So looking back at the 2019 season, I was at all of those home games. I don't think – no, there wasn't a 200-yard game that season that I attended because he had 211 yards at Houston in Week 17 that year to send the Titans to the postseason. He did have a really good performance, though, and honestly, this was probably high on my list. Against Kansas City 2019, and that 35-32 Titans win over the Chiefs, where Harrison Butker missed the field goal late, gave the Titans a late drive. They go down and score a touchdown and win in the last minute. 23 carries for 188. He averaged 8.2 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns that day.
I'll tell you one we're leaving off this list I hadn't brought up that I thought was amazing, Will, and it happened in 2023.
Okay.
Will Levis at home versus Atlanta.
Okay.
You can't say that wasn't a surprise. You can't say that wasn't a real good performance. And if you were in that stadium, which is why we're having this conversation now, that was his coming out party, Will. That performance right there was really good also.
19-29, 238 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not certainly the historical achievements of a Jalen Hyatt 5 touchdowns or a Derrick Henry 99-yard run that are not easily replicated, but for the way people felt in that stadium that day, I just think any kind of competent quarterback play behind Ryan Tannehill and hope at the quarterback position gave people that level of hope, like they were seeing something they will never see again.
Yeah, and the hope is to continue to see that going into his second year.
Yeah, of course.
Which is why we're having this big discussion on offensive line protection versus a wide receiver. A good place to be at, man, and it's based solely – well, a good bit of it's based off of what you saw in games like that.
615-737-1045. We stream live on 1045 The Zone TV, where you can watch the show on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Please.
A false start, but an acceptable answer from Robert Walsh. We're going to get into Dalton Knecht's performance in Knoxville last night, coming up a little bit more in 15 minutes, and a conversation that many are starting to have about his National Player of the Year candidacy, Ramon Foster, that we can get into coming up here in just a few minutes. But first, wanted to go back to the NFLPA survey, which has the Titans ranking 18th as an employer in the NFL. 1,700 players voted in this, which is up from 1,300 players last season.
Oh, wow.
Titans mostly had good grades. None of them were great. Didn't get an A in any category. Team travel is still an F for the Titans. And that was one of the concerns that players raised to the NFLPA. And on the NFLPA's official release of everyone's grades, says players are designated to sit in the back of the plane where many players don't fit in the seats, while the staff sit in first class. Goes on to say also the Titans are one of only 7 teams that make some of their players have roommates the night before the games. Players want to be able to prepare for the game without having to share a room. Ramon, are we going to get a more, and I don't mean this to be totally disrespectful.
Yeah.
Are we going to get a more coddled young player now coming into the league because of how much some of these college kids are getting paid?
I think there will be higher expectations. I think there will be a sense of reality also into you want to be here. You had to be there in college, and they had to have you. We don't necessarily need you in the NFL. We love to have you, but we don't need you here. So if you're going to complain about building conditions or travel conditions, then I'll find somebody else that's less of a hassle. That's what happens in the NFL. The college aspect of it is they're trying to sell you to get you to the next level. And their jobs are dependent upon your performance for what used to be a non-paid employee. That's the differences now is, well, I don't think they'll be having more of a coddle player, but here's the thing about the NFL. You want to be there. You don't have to be there in college, essentially. And what I see is this, is guys are compensated as pros when it comes down to how you operate and how you take care of your body. If you're good enough, you last longer. And if you last longer in this league, you will make more money. You make more money, you can take better care of your bodies. Those are the things that you have to find yourself getting into. I noticed early on in my career that my college facilities were better than my NFL facilities. That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. It didn't bother me much at all until I did start hearing about other places that had cryo chambers or float tanks. But I'll tell you this, in some of those places I heard have better conditions, they also lost a lot. So what is the correlation to saying we need better facilities, but we're also losing?
Right.
You know, and it's the same conversation that you have about the Kansas City ownership got an F.
Yeah, Clark Hunt.
But they've won 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years.
Well, that's the interesting thing I wanted to ask you, too, is there a healthy balance between your players being happy but not totally comfortable, right? Like, I believe there are probably coaches out there who would think, if you're giving me A's across the board, then I'm probably giving you maybe too much. Like, do you have too many resources where you're not working hard enough? You feel a little too comfortable. You feel like you're going to a cushy job and not going to work every day. Am I overthinking that?
Somewhat, but at the same time, there is no baseline and there are no boosters that want to make the weight room better in the NFL. All of that comes down to the money that the owner is willing to spend out of their own pockets or what they get from the league split on the money that they make. That's the separators to me right there. They don't have to sell you on what this is as far as the NFL and how they operate. It truly does go down to what the owner wants their players doing or how they want them to be in style. Like I said, going to Minnesota this last preseason, I think anybody would be amazed at how their facilities look, but they are also in a position to where they built brand new practice facilities in an area that was uninhabited, as far as they just bought a single plot of land. They built a hotel, they built the facilities, the practice field, and kept everything isolated. That is pretty much Viking land, essentially. And then you have other places like Tennessee or Pittsburgh or Kansas City and Green Bay that are operating off of family-owned facilities that don't have the ability or space to expand and do the things that other teams have done. I told you personally how I felt about Miami Stadium and their facilities. Like they really invested in it. But here's the other thing. Miami is a hot spot in that stadium for entertainment. They had to for the benefit of continuing to host those levels of event. I guarantee you this, when this new stadium comes into Nashville, the conversation will be different as far as facilities, field, and how the overall presentation of what the Tennessee Titans do.
The one note from Paul Kaharski yesterday on Twitter as well said that practice squad players and rookies are the players who are sharing rooms on trips, which go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, too, here's the other side of sharing room, too. Most players still share rooms up to about year 4. So I had a roommate up until about year 4. You still do those things in that world, Will. So certain teams have different rules. I shared a room with a player in camp, training camp, up until year 3 until I became a starter. So you have different ways of operating. The NFL is such a fraternity and how it operates that a lot of people don't mess with it. It just is what it is. I ain't saying it's right or wrong.
I imagine there are some players who need roommates of maybe the coach's pet to keep them from doing stupid things on trips too, maybe.
I had guys that wanted roommates.
Really?
Yeah. I had guys that wanted to be roommates, like because they either play video games together or they'd be watching the similar sitcoms with one another. You know,
make TikToks together.
Exactly. Is that all that type of stuff?
Ugh.
It's a preference thing, but I do say I think college somewhat coddles you or baby you in a sense because they have to.
615-737-1045. When we come back, is Dalton Connect having a season that is worthy of National Player of the Year? A question worth asking after his performance last night in Tennessee's win over Auburn. We'll dive into our thoughts next. Hey, what's up? It's Will Bowling. Springtime is officially here. And as the weather begins to warm, Lee Company has your back to make sure your home's air conditioning is working efficiently. And yeah, I know, not super warm this morning, but you know in Middle Tennessee that we're going from 30 to 70 at a 24 hours notice, right? It's going to happen quick. Well, one of Lee Company's expert technicians, they're going to perform a 22-point inspection as well as seasonal cleaning and maintenance to help you stay ahead of the changing weather. And thanks to their visual findings platform, their professional team virtually shows you exactly what they see in addition to updates and information on your unit's efficiency. So cross this one off your spring to-do list. Call Lee Company at 615-567-1000 or go to leecompany.com/promotions to get $20 off your air conditioning tune-up today. Do it now before weather is already in the 80s and, dare I say, the 90s. It's going to happen sooner than you think here in Middle Tennessee, so give Lee Company a call at 615-567-1000 or go to leecompany.com/promotions for $20 off your AC tune-up today. That's Lee Company, all you need. Your Thursday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW is brewed by 8th and Rose. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. And coming up in 1 hour, Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus is going to join us. The lead draft analyst for Pro Football Focus gives us the difference in value between wide receiver and tackle and breaks down some of his favorite prospects. Making the rounds as well this week at the NFL Combine, where Ramon Foster is with us, present and accounted for this morning. Kayla Anderson with the morning off. Robert Walsh behind the glass. So in the F&M Bank chat, Ramon Foster on 104.5 The Zone TV, the conversation is centered around a comment Jimmy Dykes made last night on ESPN2 when Tennessee beat Auburn 92-84, where Jimmy Dykes said he thinks Dalton Knecht should be the number one college player drafted in the NBA draft this offseason. The question I ask to you is he now worthy of National Player of the Year conversation?
Yes, have to, Will. Just the performances and day in, night in, and night out, right? We'll start there. This guy shows up to every game ready to go. And then you ask yourself, what makes him dynamic? It's his ability to hit that switch. The really good ones know how to hit that switch, and that's what he does. In big-time moments, we've seen him play and make big-time plays, too. He scored from the perimeter. He can take you off the dribble. He can facilitate. He has the ability, if we're talking about being the best player in the league, it's not just for him. It's for his team. And also, like, their willingness to run the offense through him. And we've seen also the good players, they know when to take a backseat and they know when to take over. In times in which this team has needed Dalton Knecht to show up, he shows up every single time. There's pressure in that. There's an amount of athletic ability you have to have. And to me, here's the other side of it too, having the ability to be an assassin at times where it's necessary. He's done all of those things.
Interesting, last night, Bruce Pearl, talking to the media, said after Tennessee's win over Auburn that if Tennessee wins the SEC, Dalton Knecht will be his vote for SEC Player of the Year. He also gave the caveat that if Alabama wins the SEC, Mark Sears will be his vote for SEC Player of the Year. And he admitted, I typically give my SEC Player of the Year vote to the best player on whoever wins the SEC championship. How do you feel about that?
I understand it, but when we're talking about, I'll say this, on the NBA side of things, right, league MVP doesn't go to the guy that also wins the championship every year, right? There has to be a separation of the two. You can be a real good player in the entire league and not win your division. I understand on the college level you want one to correlate to the other, but we're talking about MVP. You got to look at the effectiveness of that player's play for his team. And that may be a situation to where each and every game this guy has risen up, and that's what you're seeing out of a guy like Dalton Knecht. One shouldn't correlate to the other. It's the same way as saying, well, you can only make the Pro Bowl all-pro if you're on winning squads. No. Guys have performances sometimes that outplay what their team is capable of. Don't judge me off the basis of what my team results are if I'm the guy that's actually making them better. And sometimes somebody might have more turnovers than you. Somebody might have a bad play or two. It's not about the team essentially. My take on it is it's about the player being the best in the league. You cannot deny, after watching that performance last night, that Dalton Knecht is the best player in the SEC.
I think it's a lazy take from Bruce Pearl. I like Bruce Pearl a lot. That to me screams, hey, let me just give my ballot to my grad assistant and just go ahead and put whoever the best player is in the best team. Be done with it. I think it's a lazy way to give an award, and I think Bruce is better than that. I really do. You cannot tell me that after a 39-point performance where Rick Barnes makes comments like, it's one of the best individual performances I have ever been blessed to see, Bruce Pearl should know better than anybody that Dalton Knecht is the SEC Player of the Year after what he did to his team last night, where he genuinely took over this game and he outscored Auburn 25-21 by himself in the final 12 minutes of the game. Bruce Pearl should already be sending his ballot in now. I'd be asking Greg Sankey, like, can I go ahead and and send in my envelope? Like, forget Mark Sears. Respectfully, Mark Sears is an outstanding basketball player. If I'm Bruce Pearl, I'm sending in my ballot last night before I get on the bus to leave Knoxville.
You know what? There's a level of coy that has to go into it too, right? A level of theatrics. Maybe this is in the protection of Janai Broome also. Well, who he feels very highly of. But here's the thing. They found a way to put Dalton Knecht one-on-one with what's considered one of his best players, if not his best player, and take him to the rim. This is a 6'6" guy versus what is Janai Broome, 6'10", if I'm not mistaken? He's a big. And you mean to tell me he takes him off the dribble and also beats him at the rim also. It's protection of his players, I feel like, more than anything when you make those types of statements.
6'10", you're right.
Yeah, 6'10". Bruce is a guy that plays the game. And I feel like in moments like that, he's always recruiting. But I guarantee you this, if he had a Dalton Knecht performance from one of his players, his tune would be totally different. And that's where, to me, you can't mess up the integrity of what's real and what's not. That wasn't a real statement by Bruce Pearl after that game last night.
To me, it feels like we all just agreed. I don't know who we is, but college basketball media all just agreed that Zach Edey was National Player of the Year in like mid-January. And I don't think that's fair to Dalton Knecht and to other players in college basketball who are putting together outstanding seasons. And in conference play, Dalton Knecht is averaging 25.3 points per game, which is better than Zach Edey's 24.9 points per game. Zach Edey this season is averaging better than Dalton Knecht, 23.7 points per game and 11.8 rebounds per game. Dalton Knecht is averaging 20.1 points and 5 rebounds per game. It took him a little bit of time to understand his role within Tennessee's system and to grow accustomed to what Rick Barnes was asking of him. I don't think he should be penalized for adjusting to a new way of life and to a new way of playing basketball, because 39-point performances to beat a top 12 team and set an SEC record and give your program a 12th straight home win over a ranked opponent. I think it's time to give this award to somebody else. Zach Edey had his chance last season, and he got the award, and he deserved it. Let's give it to somebody else now.
And what's fascinating to me is you want to see certain stuff translate over, right? And it's fascinating looking at Dalton Knecht last year at the smaller school, at his JUCO school, right? Or his, at the school that he was at last time. So in the 2022-23 season, as far as just overall raw talent, like you might love Zach Edey and some may pick him as player of the year, but what are teams actually looking for when it comes down to the effectiveness of him at the next level? So here's Dalton Knecht coming from a lower league to the SEC, which has a lot of great competition in it. So last year he played 35.3 minutes a game, almost 36 minutes a game. This year he's playing 29. He's also averaging 0.6 more points. He has less turnovers than he did last year. He's got more assists. He's also having the ability to shoot better from the three-point and also just overall field goal percentage. He's absolutely killed all things that you need him to do. When you're asking yourself, does his game translate over from a lower level to a higher level? Yes, it does. And if we're talking about being a better prospect as far as the NBA goes for one versus the other, I'm not sure what Zach Edey in today's NBA is going to be capable of when you judge him in the NBA draft. But to say that Dalton Knecht got better with less minutes in the SEC, that to me signifies a guy that's a bona fide pro, but also should be considered as the player of the year in the entire NCAA men's basketball.
So our good friend Richard Hendricks in the F&M Bank chat on YouTube writes in and says, DK is great, but this player of the year race should be much closer than it is perceived. Look at Mark Sears' numbers. This isn't a landslide. I do agree that Mark Sears has tremendous numbers, and he's number one of the SEC in scoring. Before last night, I think Dalton took over that spot after last night's performance, now just 0.1 points per game ahead of him. So essentially the same amount of scoring. Number 5 in field goal percentage, number 7 in assists for Mark Sears. He's one of 3 Division I players and the only Power 5 player with 550 points, 115 rebounds, 110 assists, and 63s this season. To me, Ramon, this is kind of like the Heisman moment. for Dalton Connect last night.
Okay.
How many moments has Dalton Connect single-handedly taken over and willed Tennessee to a victory where you've got good basketball players just standing around watching Dalton Connect win the game for them, right? In moments like last night, it has to mean a little bit more. Not to take the SEC's motto and make a joke out of it, but like genuinely, it has to mean a little bit more when you score 39 points, your team's down by 8, and you outscore by yourself a top 12 team single-handedly by 4 points to win your team a basketball game. Unless Mark Sears can come out and do the exact same thing to Tennessee on Saturday to win an SEC championship. I mean, it's not over yet, right? All I'm saying is that if I'm Bruce Pearl, my vote is done. I've seen what I needed to see after seeing it in person last night.
No doubt about it, man. Bruce has to say that type of stuff. It's good for him to have content like that. I think it's super shallow in how they're viewing it. I think it's very skewed in the expectation of what this award's supposed to mean. Again, when you look at what we're asking, right, as far as play, as far as effectiveness, as far as I would even in basketball look at size of the player also. Zach Edey has the advantage of being a big. The
100%.
same way that Sheway did also. And you say to yourself, all right, you're supposed to do certain things, and I'm not minimizing it at all. But when you see a guy at the stature of Dalton Connect pull up at an NBA range and have the ability to take you off the dribble, and we're speaking about the actual player, you got to separate one from the other. And again, he's in a position where he also has to facilitate and be a guy that incorporates the game with his teammates too. All the things that you try to take away from a guy like Dalton Connect, he somewhat pushes through and fight through it also with, like I said, even less minutes than he did at his previous university. That, to me, I think watching that performance, and you know in football we always say situational football. What do you do in big moments, right? That to me is making a touchdown in the last 3 seconds of a game, or 4th and 1 and you break a big run. Like situationally in basketball terms, I don't know if there's anybody doing it the way he's doing it right now as far as Dalton Connect is concerned.
Puka in the F&M Big Chat says, seems lazy to base Player of the Year on one game. Am I basing Player of the Year off one game, Ramon Foster?
No, we've talked about numerous games. You mentioned the stat line a second ago about and times where Tennessee needed him to rise up. What's his play in overall SEC play? We're talking about these types of things. We're talking about rising up in primetime games. It wasn't last night. Last night was one of those markers that you somewhat said to yourself, this proves that he belongs in this elite conversation. One game can be Will Levis against the Atlanta Falcons that make you believe he's your franchise quarterback moving forward. One game does mean a lot, but it's not the entire horoscope of what we're speaking of.
Here's more than one game. Dalton Connect now has 6 30-point games this season and 5 in the last 13. 5 times in the last 13 games, the guy has scored 30 points. The 6 30-point showings for Connect move him into a tie for 8th most on Tennessee's all-time leaderboard, matching Reggie Johnson back in the late 70s. The guy has been here for one season, and he is already in the top 10 of 30-point performances in Tennessee basketball history. Yeah. I mean, look, in every sport, in every MVP race, in every Player of the Year race, there are defining moments that are tiebreakers between exceptional players. So calling my argument stupid because I'm simplifying it to one game is losing the context of the way every Player of the Year award is always decided. Right, Ramon Foster?
Yeah, man. It does. And just look at the effects of it, too. Here's a guy that's standing 6'6", and Grant Ramey, friend of the show, okay, shout out to him, just tweeted out about 28 minutes ago a photo of the effects of a player like Dalton Connect. And I know Zach Edey goes to these similar type things too, but we're talking about size versus skill with another, right? He's got guys bear hugging him in these photos, these still shots from the game last night, and there's 4 guys on him because of the effect. Like this isn't a Jordan rules thing. This isn't a just there's rules created for a guy. This is teams that have to fix themselves. This is Aaron Donald level.
Yeah.
To break it down in football terms.
100%.
This is Aaron Donald levels of where if you don't take him away, he affects the outcome of the game. And here's the thing about him. He still hit him for 39 on a team that's top 10.
That's very good.
Efficiency.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I said last week that I still hold true to, and some people criticize me for it, and I think Tennessee fans understood the point I was making, is that there will be kids in Tennessee now who will grow up wanting to pull up from 30 feet the way Dalton Connect does. I don't care if it's just one season. Look at the influence John Wall had at Kentucky in one season. Guys in college basketball have a generational level of influence amongst their diehard supporters based on one season all the time. That is what is happening at Tennessee this year with Dalton Connect. And Brian Rice made the point, our good friend from the Sports Animal in Knoxville on Twitter. He said, go ahead and retire his jersey on senior day and just go ahead and do it then, right? No one else ever needs to wear number 3 ever again. And he's being sarcastic there. But genuinely, I grew up on my driveway poorly shooting baskets because I wanted to fade away like Chris Lofton did. And for my generation, so many of us in a down era where Tennessee football was not always what it was for my brother and sister growing up in the 90s, Tennessee basketball meant more to us because we're watching Ron Slay, because we're watching Chris Lofton, because we're watching Jawan Smith and Scotty Hobson and all these guys. So maybe for me it is different because I grew up in a very strong era of Tennessee basketball, but so are kids now. And basketball at Tennessee is better because Dalton Connect has been a part of it. And I'm telling you, there are going to be kids in Tennessee for a long time at their upward basketball games in the Knoxville area who are going to be pulling up from long distance because Dalton Connect does on Saturdays for Tennessee.
Not just that, Will. There will be a lot of pets bought this summer, and maybe even a couple babies with the name of either just Dalton, either Connect, or DK. One of them's going to be there, okay? I promise you that.
615-737-1045, our number. Coming up, there is increased optimism over another expanded college football playoff. Give you the details on maybe a 14-team playoff and why it could benefit the SEC next.
It's Ramon Foss for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, y'all. I told y'all February is also for lovers, too, okay? And Hiller has plenty of deals for you so you can find your perfect match this month. As we close it out, man, you can get a free UV light when you purchase a select new HVAC system for your home, or get a free whole home surge protection when you buy a new whole home generator, which are very, very clutch if you've been without lights after a storm, or 50% off of the Diskeller when you buy a new tankless water heater. You'll never be more in love with your home than doing business with Hiller. And I don't care if that's a repair as far as their plumbing, their heating and cooling, or electrical. If you need anything done to your house to get one of these sweet deals, visit the website that I trust and believe in, and that's happyhiller.com.
Ramon, Kayla, and Will is brewed by 8th and Roast RKW with Ramon Foster live from Indy. Will Bowling here in studio, an empty studio. Kayla Anderson on vacation. I've had no one to talk to except Bert through the glass.
I've talked to Bert, too. I do enjoy, like, the talk back that we can have off air. That's where some of the greatest show content goes, and I feel like at times we should talk about off-air things on air, but then we probably also get fired.
There you go. I like to be gainfully employed. The gainfully and employed part are both cool to me, but if we talked about the things that we talk about in the breaks, not only would I be broke and and jobless, I'd probably be single and disowned by my parents. I don't think anybody would want to hang out with me if they heard the conversations that we had in the break.
No, exactly.
You'd be
But that's
broken
what
up,
friendships
but
are about.
you'd be broke. Cheyenne would be up.
Unfortunately, man, I hate to say it like that, but that is my sugar mama. She is my Oprah.
Hey, get you one. Hey, get you one. You deserve to be pampered too, Bert.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. I ain't paid to get my nails done in years,
All
man. I
right.
go over there, she get the nails done, toes did, everything did.
Nothing wrong with being a kept man.
Kirby Allen Kirby chiming in.
Don't say it
Thank you,
like
Kirby.
that, Curb.
I love that.
Kept man.
Love that from you.
Oh.
Well, the future of the college football playoff contract after the 2025 season still remains uncertain. Executive Director Bill Hancock saying last week there is a need for a deal to be done in the next month, and there is now optimism, according to sources talking to ESPN, and, quote, momentum. This is how it always starts, Ramon Foster, for a 14-team playoff starting in 2026. Television side of the deal has already been agreed to in principle. Starting in 2026, ESPN is poised to spend an average of nearly $1.3 billion on the playoff for 6 seasons. So that leaves 2 leadership groups, the Board of Managers, which is presidents and chancellors, and Management Committee, commissioners, and Notre Dame, which I always chuckle thinking that Notre Dame gets that big of a seat at the table, to come to a decision on the format to get the deal done. Ramon Foster, are you in the 12-team or 14-team camp?
I like the 12-team. I'll be honest with you. I like the idea of having the 12-team. Just because when you start adding, you can't stop. And that's what I feel like they're getting themselves into. If we're going to cap it at 14, leave it. And like I said, I feel like if they go to 14, the ultimate thing to do is have a Sweet 16. The other question that I have to have is, well, when you go that big, like it essentially turns into, for the teams that are in the championship, a 16, 17-week season, right? When we start breaking down how they're going to do it. So does the entire format of scheduling for teams change? Do they get 2 bye weeks? Like, does college football happen earlier? Like, there's a lot of things and questions that have to be answered when it comes down to expanding the playoffs. There are repercussions as far as the playoffs are concerned to me, and one of them is health. Just more exposure to games. And here's the other thing, too, if I will. Now you got me started, Will, on this one.
That's all right. That was the goal.
At what point, because the genesis behind all of this is money, right? At what point do we start treating this, and maybe it's just the college football playoffs, like NFL, too. Where's the injury report? Because gambling's a part of this. TV and availability is a part of this.
It's Pandora's
Opt-outs
box.
is a part of this, right? Why aren't they having that discussion, too? Because we don't know a guy is out or not practicing for what reasons. Like, that's the other – if we're going to do it like this, let's go all in.
So in the 14-team model, the SEC would get 3 automatic qualifiers, as would the Big Ten. The ACC and Big 12 would each get 2 automatic qualifiers, and the Group of 5 would get 1 automatic qualifier. In this scenario as well, Notre Dame would automatically qualify if it is ranked inside the top 14 on Selection Day. So at that point, you don't have a competitive disadvantage for Notre Dame, who, if they're ranked to the top 14, would get a bid, and then you would have 3 at-large bids from there. So you could have a scenario where the second-place team in the ACC is ranked 18th, yet takes a spot from a 12th-ranked SEC team who is the 4th best SEC team and isn't automatically qualifying. I don't like that. And this structure comes up because the SEC and Big Ten want a bigger piece of the revenue pie than the conferences who are not contributing as much to the playoff. So right now, 80% of college football playoff revenue goes to the Power Five, 20% goes to the Group of Five. That amount is split. The Group of Five conferences share one number. The Power Five conferences share a number. In this scenario, the SEC and Big Ten would each take between 25 and 30% of the revenue. The ACC and Big 12 would then be next, and they would earn somewhere between 15% and 20%. Then you get 6 to 10% for other leagues and 1% for Notre Dame. So in this scenario, this is the SEC and Big Ten coming to the table saying, why are we getting the same amount of money as conferences who are going to put in significantly less teams to the playoff than we are every year? That's why we're here.
Yeah, and I think it's appropriate also too, Will, for there to be a difference in that, especially when I'm gonna sound like a cocky SEC guy, especially when it's just
this is SEC country.
It's just a little bit better on this end than at other places, respectfully. And I got nothing against Notre Dame, but why do they get special? Why do they get special rules for a not so special history as of late? You know?
Because they're a national brand and television dollars say that they are. That's what the market dictates, just like in any other business. The free market says that Notre Dame's significant because we watch it and NBC wants it, and that's a healthy partnership.
It ain't a such thing as we watch it. They put it in front of our face because of the contract that they have. There's a difference right there, though, Will.
I don't know if there is, though, Ramon. I don't know
Huh?
if there is, because there are Notre Dame fans all across this country. Genuinely. Like, there are a lot of people in the Catholic Church that are Notre Dame fans. Like, genuinely. Like, that sounds weird, maybe, but it's legit.
I'll live that life, but that ain't football.
It's not.
Life to me right now.
No, 100% not.
It's, and again, if they deserve it, give it to them. I know they bring a lot to the table. I'm not dismissing that. They bring a lot to the table. But what, the automatic bid for them is that ain't sports to me.
Yeah, they should join a conference.
If you're not winning it.
They should join a conference if they want an automatic bid.
Exactly.
I agree.
And I'll say this, and I know they got enough power to say, well, do we want to anyway?
They do. 615-737-1045, our number as we transition to the fourth and final hour of the show. PFF's lead draft analyst Trevor Sikkema will stop by in just over 20 minutes. We'll recap how things are going in Indy, what Coach Mack had to say that I thought was interesting about Bill Callahan this morning. Next.
What's going on? 901. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. The NFLPA report cards are out. The Titans were one of 5 teams to not receive an A in any category, but B's and C's get degrees. The Titans ranked 18th out of 32 teams to receive their highest grades, and they got their highest grades in ownership, strength coach, weight room, and head coach, while their lowest grade came on team travel, where they received an F. Chiefs were very busy yesterday, giving L'Jarius Sneed an opportunity to go out and find his own trade, while also releasing Marquez Valdez-Scantling over 2 years with the Chiefs. MVS caught 63 passes for 1,002 yards and 3 touchdowns. The release saves Kansas City just around $12.5 million. Michael Pittman hopefuls can go ahead and stop holding their breath, as Colts general manager gave an update yesterday saying Michael Pittman will remain on the team in 2024, whether that's the free agency tag or an extension. The tag remains an option if the team can't get a deal done by March 5th. And the Vols take down Auburn 92-84. Dalton Connect was a superstar, scoring 39 points in 33 minutes to take down the 11th-ranked team in the nation. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Fourth and final hour of the show already on your Friday junior edition of RKW. Ramon, Kayla, and Will is brewed by 8th and Roast. Ramon Foster hosts from Indianapolis as a part of Titans Radio's NFL Combine coverage. Kayla Anderson has the morning off. Robert Walsh working behind the glass. I'm Will Bowling. Coming up in 20 minutes, Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus will stop by. We'll ask him about his reaction to Brian Callahan's comments valuing wide receivers over pass blockers and how he values the top 2 tackles versus the top 3 wide receivers in the 2024 NFL draft. Ramon Foster, can you see the scrum where Brock Bowers is addressing the media right now? I'm told it is quite the plethora of people around him.
I didn't even go over. I heard he was going to be starting up this morning, and people were already talking about they needed to get over there to see him. But on this next break, I'm going to make my way over there if he's still there. He is a big-time prospect that a lot of people are going to have questions for sure.
Absolutely right. No doubt. Coach Mack had some interesting things to say about Bill Callahan, I thought, this morning. We'll get to that coming up in just a few minutes before we get to Trevor on the other side. When asking Coach Mack about the ability to take a day 2 talent and turn him into a day 1 player, essentially, for the Titans on the offensive line moving forward. Ramon Foster, will you allow me 2 minutes to talk some soccer, though, this morning?
Man, go off, King.
All right, thank you. Last night,
Yes.
Nashville SC 4-0 over Mocha FC in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Ramon, what are you doing next Thursday night?
Next Thursday night, Thursday's usually boys' sports night, so probably some type of sport.
Well,
all right, talk to me nicely. What you got planned?
If you want to see Lionel Messi play Nashville SC in a rematch of last year's League's Cup final, you will have the ability to do that next Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central at Geodis Park, because Nashville SC is now into the round of 16 of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which they qualified for by finishing second in League's Cup last fall, and they have a date with Lionel Messi and Inter Miami in the first of a 2-leg round of 16 tie, is what we call it in the soccer world, starting next Thursday night.
Oh, man. Well, I might have to make that. Last time, it was a huge spectacle in Nashville whenever Messi came by, man. I want it on a Thursday. Will this one be just the same? If, Will, I possibly can, I will be there, man. I see Vandy Man and FNM Bank Chat say you got to go, Ramon Love. If that's the case, Will, sign me up for an empanada and put me in a stand somewhere. I'm there.
Can we guess how much the tickets are? Last time I know they were astronomical.
They're not on sale yet. So
okay. So we cannot guess how
at this
much
point,
the
we
tickets
cannot. And I
If you
will
want me to, I can
abstain
write
from
it.
that conversation. But if Ramon Foster is there, then the crowd's going to be even bigger because not only do you have a chance to see Lionel Messi, you got a chance to see the big ragu and hear about how he makes his lasagna.
I mean, and that right there is an event in itself, okay? Also, you can leave that event with a full belly and not a letdown, okay?
That's true.
So, I'm okay with this. Bert, you want to give figures into what you think the prices will be? I'll start it off with the cheapest ticket, okay? You okay with that, Will, also?
This is all y'all.
All right, for sure. Bert, I'm going to go cheapest ticket at the highest point, $265 a ticket.
It's all. I can already tell you it's
Entry
lower than
level.
that.
Okay, I like lower than that. Cheyenne and I have a game we play when she wants to buy something or I want to buy something. We don't look at the price and we say, okay, how much would you pay for this? And if the price end up coming underneath that, we'll buy it. And if it doesn't, then we walk away.
Smart.
So I'm going to say that these tickets at the lowest would be $125 a pop.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
I would pay $125 a pop to go.
Best player of all time in the sport of soccer.
Right. Maybe one of the greatest athletes in the history of mankind.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
I looked at his profile the other day. I was on my Instagram.
It's like dating profile. Like what?
No.
You should have swiped right if you got the chance to do that, man. Don't
You
give
made
me a
it
chance.
See, you are a problem, Willie, okay? You know exactly where I was going.
Absolutely.
You made this a dating profile,
Uh-huh.
okay? But what I looked on his Instagram is probably what I should have said. And on his Instagram, this mug, this man himself, this legend has 500 million followers.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
500 million.
That's
followers.
you have 100,000, and you're a high roller on that app, but he's got 500 million.
We're talking about two different universes here, man. 500 million people choose to follow a person.
He is the third highest follower count on Instagram, paling only in comparison to at Instagram and at Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, Ronaldo's one. Post more pictures of his abs. Messi doesn't have abs.
Has 622 million followers.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Ronaldo
hold
more
on.
of like
So
a
how does-
model too.
Okay, so that's the separators. Ronaldo is showing skin, and Messi's just the GOAT. It's two different conversations.
Messi doesn't do as much of the off-field stuff and interviews and conversations. Ronaldo loves that part of it, but
I will say, and you know, I'm a huge watch fan. Shout out to Genesis, okay, as they have the Rolex event this weekend. But I'm also just saying that to say this: Ronaldo's watch collection, elite.
I don't doubt it.
Elite.
I
And I
don't doubt
guarantee
it.
a dude like him ain't even paying for the watches. It's just people that want to give him the watch.
Sure.
Man. I need a connection like that, Will. That's my next goal, okay, is private plane access and luxury watches at a real high discount or for free.
If any of us is going to do it, it's going to be you. It sure as hell ain't going to be me. I don't even think I'm allowed on private planes.
Hey, check me out, though. Listen, y'all know my motto. Everybody eats, right? I'm not flying on the plane by myself, and if the family's not with me and we're trying to go, somewhere simple like, a Texas game or something like that, like I'm taking the guys with me. And you know who's the guys? You dudes, okay?
Us fools and guys who share last names with you.
Talk nice to me.
You get it. You get it. You picking up what I'm putting down.
4 years ago today, Nashville SC made its MLS debut in front of 59,069 fans at Nissan Stadium. NSC tweeted it out a minute ago. This is technically their first birthday because Nashville SC's first ever game was Leap Day 4 years ago. So it is cool having been a fan at that game, watching 59,000 people fill Nissan Stadium. And then last night, they're hosting a game in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and now they're going to host Lionel Messi in the first of two legs in a round of 16 game of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is the biggest competition in North America for soccer. It's really cool. It's cool to see the way this club has grown over the last 4 years. Last night, Forster Ajago with 2 goals in the win over Mocha FC. Boys and Gold back at it Saturday night, an 8:30 kick at Colorado Rapids, which you will be able to hear on the 104.5 The Zone app with Lucas Panzica and myself on the call.
Man, how are those calls for you also as far as like your mindset into doing it? I know you do track. You've done high school football, which we've done together at the state, and also on Friday nights. Also, are you a different person at the soccer matches?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. I feel like the sign of a good broadcaster is being able to be yourself and not be some caricature of yourself and be authentic. So I'd like to think I'm still kind of the same as track and football and other things, but soccer is my favorite sport to call, 100%. Just the rhythm of it, the give and take of you've got to be creative enough to come up with meaningful conversations because there's so much happening, but at the same time, there's so little happening. And I don't mean that as an insult to the game of soccer. It's probably my favorite sport right up there with football. But you have to be creative because there is not an immediate action of someone getting tackled or someone throwing the ball. There's a lot happening, and there's a story you have to weave together to make it relevant to the audience about, okay, why did this cross that just went for nothing in the box being headed away? Why was that meaningful? Like, why was it interesting that we decided to do that instead of playing down the middle and still not scoring in that way? Like, what's the context of what's happening? I think especially in this market, as soccer continues to grow, I like the challenge of figuring out ways to make the game accessible to people that it might not have been accessible to before Nashville SC was here. And people who were in hockey and made hockey relevant to a lot of us back when the Predators moved here did a great job of explaining the fundamentals of the rules without talking down to us. And that's something I feel like soccer people do a lot of times is they talk down to you if you can't speak the same language as them. One thing Lucas and I very badly want to do is educate and talk to people about soccer without talking down to them about it. And that's something that we try to do every time we do a broadcast.
You're right, and I'll up against it real quick, but that same thing also happens, Will, for people that do play FIFA and those who don't also.
That's also true.
It's smug. It can be smug depending upon who you're talking to.
That's very fair. We will get to that Coach Mack conversation. We went longer on the soccer than I anticipated, but that's perfectly fine with me. As we will get to that coming up later on in the show after we talk with Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus, PFF's lead draft analyst, joins us next. Thursday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will is brewed by 8th and Roast, RKW on 104.5 The Zone. Kayla Anderson with the morning off. Ramon Foster in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. I'm Will Bowling. Looking to be joined by Trevor Sikkema, lead draft analyst for Pro Football Focus, coming up here in just a moment as Robert Walsh attempts to connect with him. And we continue that conversation. We can hear now what Coach Mack had to say earlier in the show. If you missed that conversation, you can hear it wherever you download podcasts. When asked about things Bill Callahan will look for in offensive linemen, I thought this was a positive response from Titans Radio's head coach today.
I can tell you this: I've had several of the scouts. You know, they had a big, major meeting that lasted several days with this scouting group here and with the coaches. The coaches put together profile tapes of what they're looking for their position. And I've had numerous of these scouts here. And in fact, you know, one came up to me last night as I was getting on the elevator, you know, and said, "Coach Mack, the presentation that Bill Callahan made with his profile tapes telling us what he is looking for and how he can fix this, how he can fix that, but this is what he specifically says, you know, I can't fix this, I can absolutely work with." He said that presentation opened everybody's eyes. Wow. Because Bill Callahan is the absolute best. Yeah. He is the absolute best at that. I wasn't in that meeting. I don't know, but I do know this. If an offensive lineman is picked by the Tennessee Titans or the linemen that are here, he's already gone through every lineman's plays that are here, and he can point out, I can fix this guy. Here's what I can do. I'm fascinated to watch this, but I can speak with some clarity on this. I've coached a lot of defenses against Bill Callahan's offensive lines, and there's very, very few times that you are going to trick them as a unit. And that to me is, so I can't tell you specifically, but in that meeting, I would have loved to have been in that meeting and listened to that hour presentation with tape saying, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I can fix, here's the problem here, here's the problem there. We've got the dude. And that was one of the biggest gets. You know, Brian Callahan, that was a big jump start to his young head coaching career to be able to get the top offensive line coach in the league that just so happens to be his father.
I think that was interesting, Ramon, from Coach Mack earlier this morning when talking about the profile tape Bill Callahan put together and what he specifically wants and doesn't want. I thought that was an interesting caveat, too, where he can even point out tape and say, this guy doing this right here is something that I can't work with.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's one of those exceptions things. If you do happen to take a guy like that, like everybody's got something about the job that or their position or how they move or how they run and how they, you know, use their hands that a coach feel like this is just how he's going to play. This isn't how I'm going to be able to coach him up. Or you've seen him just be stuck in his ways. That is a fascinating approach, man, to hearing Coach Mack talk about that meeting in particular. Like, I genuinely want the tape from that if somebody has it and it's been recorded. I want to hear others speak about what they heard from him because the identification of talent, man, means a lot. And not just only that for me, but him understanding what's going to work for him as a coach, but also for our system that he's coaching under. That, to me, is where it becomes most interesting and how he's going about identifying talent. I've told you guys time and time again, like, depending upon which team I was either had been drafted to, if I was, or where I decided to ultimately to go to in free agency, that matters a lot. And hearing Coach Callahan be in a position to where he can explain that to people on what a player he likes look like, I think that's super unique. But that's also what I've also told you guys too when it comes down to being a good coach is knowing your personnel, knowing how you want to coach those guys up. And I think as far as the Titans' sake go moving forward, the guys that are in that room, I now ask that question of what does he think about the guys that he somewhat inherited? How many of those dudes from last year's roster are dudes that he say, yes, I can fix and work with, And who are some of those guys that you just will see phased out either this upcoming year in training camp or the next couple of years? Those are real questions, which is why I say when coaching changes happen, there's a lot of movement that have to go under what coaches want, what they want their players to look like, and how they want them to play also.
Still trying to connect with PFF's Trevor Sikkema, who we are hoping to get on here any minute. Certainly understand that combine things are busy and you're using your phone a lot to take videos of prospects talking at podiums and may have gotten our wires crossed. So we will do our best to either get him on as soon as we can. What do you say?
On this live, say he just texted me back. He told me to tell Bert to call him again. That's what he get for trying to say that he's a flat defender. Okay, maybe Bert had a flat dial tone. Okay.
All right, so he is ready to be called again. Then there we go.
Yeah,
so we'll get Trevor on here in a minute. But I am curious, Ramon, and I want to get back to that tomorrow on what are traits that you can't teach offensive linemen that Bill Callahan will watch tape and want.
Let me start writing it down right now.
All right, because I know I could get you going for probably an hour on that.
Yeah, man. And it's also the other side of this, too, the expectation of what you learn in college. Like, who players are coached by positionally means a lot to, I think, some NFL coaches. Like, for a while, Wisconsin was an offensive line school, right? I think now Michigan's in that conversation. And it'd also be interesting to see where their guys go that we don't know about necessarily, but they have a reputation of playing at Michigan or Wisconsin or Penn State, places like that.
Joining us right now on the phones, he is the lead NFL draft analyst for Pro Football Focus, Trevor Sikkema, who joins us now. Trevor, I know it is a crazy week for you guys, and you guys have a ton of great coverage going on at Pro Football Focus. We appreciate you giving us a couple minutes this morning.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you guys you having me on the show.
Absolutely. We are affectionately known around here as the show before the Buck Rising show. So I know you know him well, and his reputation precedes him.
Yeah, actually, Buck was trying to get me on the show a little bit later today, and my schedule is honestly slammed, so I told him that I wasn't going to be able to. So you guys actually got me in before Buck did. So I don't know. Maybe you can tell him that you one-upped him a little bit today, if that works for you.
We will take any and all opportunities to one-up Buck Rising. That is something we enjoy on this program.
And Trevor, the look that I saw on his face, because a lot of business happened here at the Combine, and a lot of fun happens too. I don't think you want to be on Buck's show today, okay? So the way his face looked, you're better off with us, okay?
Oh, look, I'm happy to be on with you guys, but Buck is my guy. I'm always happy to be on with him. So I gotta give the professional friend answer there as well. But it is good to be with y'all. It really is.
If we didn't love him, we wouldn't make fun of him. That is for sure.
That's true. That's true.
Trevor, Brian Callahan made some headlines the other day, making the rounds at the Combine, talking about valuing pass catchers and guys who can win one-on-one versus pass protectors. Is that the right way for him and for general manager Rand Carthon to rebuild the Titans as they sit there with the number 7 overall pick?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, offensive firepower, it felt like that was going to be the emphasis for the Titans this offseason. You look at moving on from Mike Vrabel, and that's not a move that I thought that they were going to make. And I know that there's things that lead to that. It's not just one thing, but I have to feel as though that mentality, that approach, and just not – I don't know, maybe there were some doubts that who Vrabel was as a coach and the identity he wanted to have on the team. Maybe it was not as modern, maybe, as they believed that they wanted it to be. And when I say modern, what I mean is fast, lighting up the scoreboard, all sorts of speed. You talk about winning on one-on-one. Yeah, I think that's absolutely an area that they're looking for. I was actually at Rand Carthon's presser. He was one of the first guys that came up on Tuesday, and he specifically emphasized characterizing team speed as where they want to get better. He used the Miami Dolphins by an example, and he said, people talk about the Miami Dolphins and they talk about, imposing their will with speed. He's like, we want the Tennessee Titans to be that. We want people to talk about that with us, not being able to match up with the team speed that they have. And the best way to do that is to get really fast, really talented playmakers, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So they're sitting there. They've got a really good selection to be able to do it. I think they'll have an opportunity to pick one of the top 3 wide receivers in this class in Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, or Rome Odunze. I think all 3 of those players would fit the billing of what he is explaining as a pass catcher. But then, like you said, there's also an opportunity to potentially take the number 1 offensive tackle on the board in Joe Alt from Notre Dame, I believe at least. And I think that they'll have that opportunity too. But I came away from that press conference thinking, man, that team speed emphasis makes me feel like they are leaning wide receiver more than any other position.
Trevor Sikkema, lead NFL draft analyst for PFF, is with us this morning. Trevor, I have to ask that question since you brought up Joe Alt right there also. And the Titans will have their choice depending on which mock draft you believe or what teams decide to do, especially if there's a run on quarterbacks early, right? What separates Joe Alt from Olu Fashanu as they're perceived to be number 1 and number 2 ranked tackles in this draft?
I mean to cut you off there. I just think that that Alt has a more well-rounded game, right? I think that Fashanu moves a little bit better. I think he fires off the ball a little bit better. I think that his mirror ability, his footwork, his balance in pass protection, I think specifically when you talk about neutralizing some of the best speed rushers in college football, he went up against one of the best speed rushers there was in the country, not just in games, but in practice every single day in Chop Robinson. And I think that we will see him put on a show here in Indianapolis with the type of speed that player has. And, with Olu going up against him for the last couple of years, it makes sense that he is well-versed at stopping those speed type of rushers, even against some of the better athletes. But Olu does struggle with power. I think you look at the last couple of years, especially when Ohio State played against Penn State, that was some of the bigger fronts that he went up against. Zach Harrison, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, these guys who are these, 265, 270, 280 defensive ends, and they just go straight into his chest. And he wasn't used to that. And he could anchor. He has that anchor ability, but he's getting knocked back into the pocket a little bit too far. That pop at contact was really dictating into what he was able to do and how he was able to neutralize those guys. So I think the NFL is going to worry about that a little bit, where I don't think they're going to have that concern with Alt. Alt's probably not as good of an athlete as Olu is, but you go to bed every night not worrying about your left tackle. And I think that if any NFL team has that opportunity, they would jump at that chance to have a stress-free left tackle type of a franchise player there at a really, really important spot. And I just feel as though the steadiness and the overall talent of Joe Alt is going to be so alluring for so many teams that they're going to want to draft him as the top offensive tackle in this class.
Trevor, that's crazy you say that about Fashanu also, because we did my top 3 guys. It was Alt, Fashanu, and I like Mims as my number 3. But the thing that I said about Fashanu was he has this double under approach to taking on bull rushes, and that's because of his size, or either he believes in his strength. He will be able to anchor, but he leaves his chest open to receive punishment down the middle. And that right there can be problematic. Fascinating that was your take also. But the other side of this, too, is the other side of the ball for me. In years past, I feel like we speak highly of D tackles. You may have just one in Byron Murphy, or how some consider T'Vondre Sweat as being those guys. Are we going to see a change as far as the draft considers those guys, or is it just not a great year for D tackles?
Well, I think that Johnny Newton from Illinois is another guy who, when you look at his cumulative PFF grades over the last 2 years, he's got an elite run defense grade and an elite pass rushing grade. He is somebody who I think is just a relentless worker. He doesn't have the measurables or athletic gifts that a Byron Murphy does, but he is still such a productive player because of his desire to be great. And I think that is something that's very valuable in the trenches as well. Playing an offensive or defensive line, you're getting the crap kicked out of you basically every single snap. So you got to want it. Like, if you are going to maximize your talent, if you are going to be somebody that's bringing value to the team overall, you got to know you're about to take some punishment, but your response to that has to be, I got to dish it out too. And it's a crazy mentality. It really is to play into the trenches at this level. And I think that Johnny Newton from Illinois is somebody who has first-round caliber mentality, and he does have first-round caliber tape, even though I think it's probably going to be back end of the first round. So I do think Byron Murphy the second from Texas, is going to be that first DT off the board. I think that Newton is probably going to be second, and then you throw in some other guys, Chris Jenkins Jr. from Michigan, who's one hell of an anchor type of a player. He's still kind of figuring out pass rush, but not quite like his dad because he's about 50 pounds lighter than his dad. But, man, he has that kind of mean streak and mentality when it comes to making the middle of the trenches his own and defending the run. And then Braden Fisk, another guy I like from Florida State, he's kind of the opposite. He's more of a pass rusher first, really quick off the ball, lightning quick. We saw that this past year at Florida State. He had 6 pressures in just the Louisville ACC championship game alone, was able to showcase that in the Senior Bowl as well. And then you mentioned T'Vondre Sweat. I think he's the ultimate wild card in the interior defensive line class, because what do you make of a guy like this? He moves way better and more explosively than a player of his size, but guys, he might be pushing $4 billion. Like, genuinely, he might be close to 400 pounds. So can you draft a player that big knowing that maybe they don't have the conditioning to be able to play as much as you want to have them out there on the field? These are all just factors that I think teams are going to be different on, but that's kind of how I view the top part of this interior defensive line class.
Trevor, man, on the way out, Brock Bowers has a small army surrounding him right now in Indy, talking to him, and every time he talks, it seems like the Titans come up at this point. How viable of an option would he be for the Titans at number 7, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that's within his range, right? I mean, I think that it maybe starts at number 5 overall. We know how much Jim Harbaugh likes to use the tight end offense, and with the Chargers sitting there at number 5, I still think that's kind of rich for where I believe he'll ultimately get drafted. If I was a betting man right now, I'd tell you somewhere between 11 and 20 is where I think Brock Bowers is going to go off the board. But I do believe that there might be some teams, hey, maybe the Chargers at 5, maybe even the Titans at number 7, who could entertain trading back a little bit, getting outside of the top 10, some extra draft capital, knowing that they might not have to pick at that exact spot to get a guy like Brock Bowers, because there's just not been a great return on investment for tight ends who are drafted that high. You also have to look at the contract, right? If you're drafting a tight end in the top 10, just from the rookie wage scale alone, they're automatically a top 10 paid tight end in the league before they even take a snap. And so that just kind of shows you the value of the position when you talk contractually. He's a damn good football player, one of the most consistently dominant dudes at the tight end spot that we have seen come through college football, certainly in the PFF era. But he is a little bit of he's kind of a preference player. Like he's very versatile, but with his size, I think he's going to measure in a little bit smaller than people believe. He is kind of that move tight end more than he is a true traditional on the line of scrimmage tight end. You're going to play him more in the slot. You're going to play him as a wing back off the line of scrimmage more than you are a true end of the line of scrimmage, extra offensive lineman and 6-man protections kind of a thing. So as long as you have a good understanding of what Bowers does well and where he'll probably succeed in the NFL, that kind of, to me, holds the value and the answer to where he'll get drafted. And ultimately, I do think it's going to be somewhere right around that middle of the first round.
Trevor Sikkema has been our guest, lead draft analyst for Pro Football Focus at Tampa Bay Trey, where you find him on Twitter. I know it's a crazy time, like we said. Thank you for making some time for us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Anytime.
All right, there he is. Trevor Sikkema with us this morning, talking Titans and NFL draft. Some things to react to there that I think were particularly interesting. Ramon, I see why Buck is friends with him and likes to have him on. The guy's very good at what he does.
He was good at his job. I will not deny that. Very informative, thorough. And I got to give it to him. His breakdown of Olufashano was somewhat spot on with mine, too. I thought he anchors. He did say he anchored well, but I told you that in my assessment of him. His hands are wide with that double under approach to stopping the bull rush. Fascinating.
Hey, he's got to stop hanging out with Buck, though. He's picking up on some of his trades, showing up fashionably late.
He felt bad. He was apologetic.
Very apologetic,
He's a nice
unlike
guy.
Buck. As long as he holds on to those trades,
right.
we can keep working with it.
That's exactly where I'm going. Buck is still the cat that will show up when he wants to and blame you for asking him to be there too early. 615-737-1045, our final call for phone calls. A trade back for Brock Bowers. You down? Let's talk about it next.
If you have a wet basement or crawl space, it's time to call United Structural Systems. We've all heard about these guys for a long time and for good reasons. They've served Middle Tennessee since 1994, and they've helped thousands of satisfied residential customers. They are the go-to company when it comes to foundation repair and waterproofing. And if you have a wet basement or crawl space, you don't have to put up with that. Water intrusion and moisture could give you all sorts of problems down the road, and you want to get this fixed. It could be because you have poor drainage or surface water flooding over the walls or underwater pressure forcing water into the basement. It could be a plumbing leak. You just don't know. But the team at United Structural Systems will find out why you have a wet basement or crawl space and will give you a plan to fix it. If you do decide to move forward, you don't have to pay a dime until the work is done and you are satisfied. So get that free estimate from the people I trust. Go to USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com or call them 615-488-7855.
Wrapping up the show on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW, brewed by 8th and Roast. Coming up tomorrow morning, we will have Brent Hubbs of VolQuest in his weekly spot at 7:20. Robert Walsh, we also have another special guest that will join me and you and Ramon Foster from Indianapolis, who will be in Nashville again tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Well, you booked him.
Oh. I didn't know he was going to be in Nashville.
You had a real Michael Scott moment right there, Bert.
Can't wait for this guest, this mystery guest. Yeah, Math Bomb, Kent LaPlatte. He does a lot of stuff with the combine scores, relative athletic scores. It's going to be fun to break down the prospects after we get some numbers to put behind them and where they fit and teams' trends. A lot of information, very nerdy, the kind of conversations that I love, and a super smart guy. Can't wait to have him on.
I love it.
I'm looking forward to that conversation too, Bert. Good find on that one, and good get him on to the show too, man. That's a lot of information. I like this type of stuff, and they can break guys down and really give us the ins and outs of their game.
Also got a great mustache, man. Got to ask him about that thing. I'd put much better than Buck's. Much better. Way more nuanced.
I don't even count Bucks as a mustache.
Right. It just kind of blends into the other crud on the side of his face. Like it's like the Joe Dirt of high-class mustaches.
It's just like it's a lip sweater. It's not really a mustache.
There you go.
I've never heard that term.
Have you not?
A lip sweater?
Yeah, lip sweater.
Never heard of a lip sweater.
No, he doesn't have a full coat on, just a little sweater. Just something light.
Maybe a vest.
Long
Maybe
sleeve
a lip
tee.
vest.
Yeah, right.
I've seen people with like lip sweat, you know what I'm saying, where they get nervous or they start to sweat, they get hot in places. He's like, man, that boy got some sweat on that lip. Like, he must be stinging. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Bert. That's sad.
Shut up.
You're
man.
ridiculous.
Lip sweat. You're like, look at that boy lip.
Or you know what I'm talking
up.
about. You see people get hot and they got that forehead bead of sweat. Like I've seen that on top of people's lips too.
Not to talk about my history again, but that's how you know. If a girl got a little bit of bead of lip sweat in church when the AC out, that's the girl you need to talk to. Get to her before she get to Golden Corral. That's
anyway. Menace to society, Robert Walsh. We need to normalize sending you back to the shadows again. Thank you.
Women.
Appreciate that. Trevor Sikkema with us a few minutes ago. Ramon Foster says his money would be on Brock Bowers going between 11 and 20 in the draft, and said, I wouldn't put it past a team like the Chargers or Titans to trade back into that range, get a playmaker in Brock Bowers, and then have other options later on in the draft. Maybe the Titans perhaps picking up their third-round pick that they sent for Will Levis. How would you feel about that?
Not a bad pick. Again, my thing is I've been high on the draft capital conversation. I absolutely want to live in that world. Like if you telling me there's a quarterback run and the team's in front of you at 11 or 10, depending on if somebody want to move up, you can still get Fashanu or Alt. I'd go back. Or if you tell me, hey, those guys are gone and he's a better pickup right now, I'll tell you this. Brock Bowers is a matchup nightmare. He has the speed. He has the ability to be on the field for 3 downs at a time, and he can just strictly win. We believe Brian Callahan is the guy that can dial it up and call it. I like the idea that he want to surround Will Levis for the next few years with weapons that you know are good. Again, he loves big college guys. Brock Bowers has played big against all the big teams in the SEC and the national championship, and has been doing it since his freshman year. What more can you ask for if you're asking about how confident of a pick he will be? I like it. Other positions, I think, don't have as much confidence of the pick. Like, I really don't know what Malik Neighbors is going to be. You know?
Sure.
Like, I can assume what I think, but the fact that we've seen Brock Bowers do this from his freshman year, that says a lot if they didn't choose a wide receiver or one of those tackles.
That's a lot of success and tape over a 4-year college career. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. And a lot of this is learning what the baseline needs are for Rand Carthon this year. Because I get the sense from people around that building, Ramon, that in a lot of ways, this is Rand's real first draft class.
Right.
I think he inherited a lot that had already been put in place. And that's not to disrespect Rand, but it does feel like this is more the draft class he's going to need to be judged on versus last year's. And he gets credit for Tajay Spears, for some good picks last season.
I mean, hey,
But-
Levis, right?
And for Will Levis, absolutely. Because when you take a quarterback in any capacity, your career is then tied to that player, good or bad. But this is the year where he's really got to build up some depth because this team has none.
The other thing, too, for me is this. Considering this is his head coach, this is his staff because he's in control of those items, right? That's something that was released in the press. We'll also see what the picks are as far as his coaches want, because that's what he said his job is to give my coaches the players that they say they want. So I, if it is Brock Bowers, is that a player that we have to consider? This is who Brian Callahan said he wanted.
Sure. How will you be celebrating Leap Day today, Ramon Foster?
I didn't know they were driving back to Nashville.
Okay.
I didn't know there was a celebration. But if we need to celebrate, I would say possibly. I'm going to throw this out there for free. Maybe my wife has a home-cooked meal because hotel food, and I love St. Elmo's, okay?
Well,
but, I mean,
the Titans will be celebrating by breaking ground on a stadium. That's how they'll celebrate Leap Day.
Hey,
that's a big ordeal.
Before we get out of here, what's your favorite thing Keisha cooks?
Man, her lasagna.
Both of y'all make a good lasagna? That ain't fair. Y'all keeping all that good cooking in one house, and I ain't had a bite of lasagna.
See, mine is a hood lasagna, okay? I got a little, it ain't much to it, you feel me? Keisha throws into, those different, the ricotta and the fresh shredded mozzarella and all this type of stuff. Like, she spices it up a little bit more than I do.
Hood lasagna.
I love that.
That's a thing that just was birthed at 9:53 a.m. on
That's
Leap
what
Day
our,
2024.
Our band would be called. And welcome to the stage, Hood Lasagna.
Musical guest, Hood Lasagna. More Hood Lasagna for 4 hours tomorrow morning. Ramon Foster, send us home.
Good people, hey, we'll be safe on the road, man. But at all times, you must remember your Twitter fingers and mic is always high. See y'all tomorrow.